So I have the pleasure of sharing the virtual stage here with a colleague of mine. For those of you that haven't already put it together, I'm Johnny Romero with Intersys LLC, a language service provider based out of Golden, Colorado. I've been in this interpretation field for a little over 25 years. I am a certified medical interpreter through MBCMI. I am a licensed instructor to teach medical interpretation. And we also provide translation as well. Enough about me. I'm going to share now the opportunity for my co-moderator, Francesca Conti from Roma, Italia. Welcome, Francesca. Please share with the group where you're located and a little bit about what it is that you do.
Hi, Johnny. Thank you very much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Francesca Conti. I am based in Rome, Italy, and I work here, but I also work remotely, and I'm also willing to work in other places. That's the most interesting and the most exciting part of being an interpreter. I like to travel for work as well. And I work with Italian, obviously, English and Spanish. And I'm also a medical interpreter. I fell in love with this sector while I was at uni. And then this passion has led me to become a specialized interpreter. So I enjoy it very much, and it's going perfectly. And I take advantage of this situation to announce it. This has led me to think about creating something of my own. So I'm thinking about launching a new project, which is an ongoing project. So I'm still working on it, but I want to launch my own medical translation course in Italian, English, and Spanish. And awesome. For students or young interpreters and also expert interpreters who want to master the skills and who want to get to know this sector better, because sometimes it's difficult. It can be hard, but there are some tricks that you can use. So my plan is to help these students and colleagues to find the key they can implement while they're working. So I really hope that this helps.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exciting. Thank you for sharing that. We'll be keeping an eye out for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to have you back on after our keynote speaker. So you'll be seeing Francesca back again. Thank you, and we'll see you shortly. I'm going to now share this platform with a good friend and colleague of mine, Patrice Dussault from Montreal. And it's funny because I was thinking, since we first had our conversation, your following has like almost doubled. I'm not saying that I'm responsible for that in any way, but maybe I partially supported the initiative. But I just want to say I knew you before all that. I knew you before you were LinkedIn famous. So I just wanted to give you an introduction that you deserve. Patrice Dussault is an interpreter, also a translator, really. He is with Capichco, and we'll let everyone get to know you in a moment here, but he comes from a lineage of translators in his family, which is, if you haven't already seen our conversation on my podcast, I encourage you all to do that. Tuned in with Intersys on YouTube, where we get to know a little bit about his upbringing and his entry into this field, where he is, among many other qualities and skills he has, an automotive historian, which is very interesting. And I've dubbed him, just so that I can claim it, the Jay Leno of language service providers. That's how I refer to him. So Jay may be watching this now or later, but in any case, we're going to try to make that happen at some point in the future. So Patrice, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of this special event.
Well, thank you for having me, Johnny. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here and to seeing you again and to be working you again. And to answer your question, I think you did have a role in my following doubling since the last time we spoke online. And I would like to thank you very warmly for that. I am grateful.
No, you're easy person to really appreciate the skills and the thought you put into your posts. You always share really some great gems for those that are either new to the industry or experienced interpreters and translators. And I know a lot of those in attendance today are really looking forward to this presentation. So with that in mind, with our hashtag More Than Bilingual theme, I'll just get things started with just telling us about the translation and interpreting services, what they are, and why are they, something that should matter to people, whether they're familiar or not with what we do. Let's, share that with them.
Sure. That's a very good question, by the way, because there's a clear distinction that needs to be made between the two jobs, because most of the people in the market, among our clients or among the general public, translation and interpreting services are not very well known. So on the one hand, translators work with a pen or a keyboard. They work on written text, like reports, guidelines, video games, press releases, marketing campaigns, or even forecasts and analyses, for example. But on the other hand, interpreters use their own voice in shareholder meetings, volunteer meetings, morning huddles, courts of law, conferences, or even Zoom calls. So now I'd like to talk about the value of those two services. More specifically, about the way organizations perceive the value of our work. By organizations here, I would like to specify, I mean private companies, governments, and NGOs. So to start, we've all heard organizations claim, translation's too expensive, or we simply can't afford your services, and we didn't budget that, etc. We've all heard it. Well, let's take an example. Let's talk about works of art. Paintings' worth are not based on the cost of brushes, paint, or canvas, and they're not related to the time it took to execute the paintings either. Their value stems from the emotion that they reveal or the reaction that they trigger. So a translation's worth isn't based on word count, matches, or even tools. And it's not related to the time it took to create our translations, for example. Their value stems from the emotion that they reveal, the message that they convey, and most importantly, the action that they trigger. So that is the issue at the hand. Sorry. But then the other day, I was told again, translations is expensive, and it got me thinking, what if they were right? Because I keep hearing it over and over. So indulge me for a minute and let me play the devil's advocate here. If you only look at numbers, translation and interpreting services do look expensive. But like precious works of art, which are expensive, people don't buy them because they're cheap. They buy them because they represent what they represent or because of their intrinsic value. Here, the same applies to translation or interpreting services, because our services enable our clients to open lucrative markets for companies. They enable NGOs to distribute humanitarian aid and finally allow governments to implement programs successfully. Plus, their respective target customers or people at risk or voters get something in return. And by something in return, I mean a benefit. And it doesn't have much to do with word count or timed presence in the case of interpreters. Rather, it's tied to the listeners' or readers' actions triggered by the translator or the interpreter. It's tied to the time and money saved by preventing lawsuits. It's also tied to the client company's image and reputation, or it's tied to the customer's loyalty to a company. So when organizations need a sensitive agreement, safety instructions, or market insight to be translated, they should not ask, how fast can I get this? But rather, I need to be perfectly clear because I can't afford misunderstandings. And you and I all know what misunderstandings and misinformation mean. They can threaten companies' brands, NGOs' work, and yes, as we've seen recently in the news, even democracy. The outcome of political elections, the results of a marketing campaign, or your favorite NGO's awareness campaign, for example. That's why organizations have to partner with professional translators and interpreters, those who have the training, the experience, and the ethics to double-check their info and accurately convey their critical message. So here are 5 things I suggest to help solve these issues. 1, build and maintain open lines of communication with your clients' organizations. 2, conduct research and cross-reference sources. 3, respect client style guide, voice, and tone. 4, ask clients to validate facts and terminology. Then finally, 5, adapt to clients' target audiences, always. This way, you help organizations deliver their message to their target audience in their own tone of voice, bridging the gap between language and complex terminology, between the audience and complex terminology. All this while achieving their message objective. That's how these organizations feel understood, no matter the language. So if an organization's time, efforts, and investment are at risk, they should remember this: work with professional translators and interpreters to secure message and avoid the worst, right? Right. Now, organizations understand the value of communication in business. They're even willing to pay for marketing campaigns and copywriting and creation. And I mean, it's very expensive. So when you think about it, they're willing to pay for creation, but they're not ready to pay for the translation that will allow them to reach out their own shareholders, their own employees, their own constituents from other countries in which they speak other languages. So they can't talk to those stakeholders or even enter new markets or find partners without our translated or interpreted communications. So logically, our services should be planned as marketing and communication investments. So to recap, the translation industry has changed in recent years, and I'm not just talking about AI. Organizations have to move away from the old mindset by which they see linguists as an expense, treat them like service providers, shop around for rates and deadlines, get misunderstood, miss targets, and then lose money on documents they can't even use. So they have to trade their old mindset in favor of a new one, where they are starting to consider linguists as an investment, treat them like collaborators and partners, not service providers, look for actionable, impactful documents, and be understood and produce the desired effect. Finally, get an actual return on their investment. And that's why the key to the future relationship between organizations and language professionals is partnerships.
That's fantastic. A lot of information to digest and unpack, and I'm sure, as those replay it later, they can always, again, if they haven't already taken notes, come back to that. Our profession, of translating, interpreting, for some people are pretty mysterious. And I would say most people, unless they're, in the process of looking for someone to hire. Even clients can be relatively, uneducated as to what it is an interpreter or translator does. So my question is, do you feel the language industry would benefit from being better known?
Absolutely. For a very simple reason, Johnny. It's because it's true. Translation and interpreting services are cloaked in mystery. Because much of our work happens behind the scenes. People only see the final product without considering or being able to notice the extensive process, and the skill required to produce the output. So when we do our job well, it seamlessly conveys the message without drawing attention to itself. As a result, the public may never notice or appreciate our work unless mistakes occur, of course. And we've all seen mistakes pointed out on LinkedIn posts, haven't we? Also, since I keep having to explain what we do to clients and just the general public who ask questions about it, I'd like to address indeed the necessity for an industry-wide awareness or communication plan or campaign, if you prefer. Because let's admit it, we have a PR problem. We have a PR problem because linguistic services have never been supported by formal communications. The organizations and the public in general have never been told about how valuable or useful our services are, about the amount of work and research that goes into finely crafted translations. They've never been told that quality linguistic services help clients achieve communication goals, like producing an impact or getting a target audience to adopt a new behavior, a new product, or a service, for example. And I repeat, the question does not revolve around measurements like word count or hour count, but like I explained a few minutes ago, it revolves around the value and usefulness for clients. So for organizations, what is lawsuit prevention, an international accord, access to a new lucrative market, a protected brand or reputation, a seamlessly implemented government program, or even a proper functioning judicial system for any country? What is that all worth to relevant organizations? That is the question. And after millennia of translating and interpreting for leaders from the business community, diplomats, countries, etc., the truth is organizations still don't understand the value of investing in our services. And that is why we have a hard time setting reasonable rates and timelines, for example. So what we need to do after today's event is to group, to brainstorm, and to develop a communication plan to raise awareness on our work processes and prepare value propositions that will highlight the ROI that our work creates.
Thank you. I think that is very helpful. More specifically, can you tell us about what the importance of translation and interpreting in the areas of social, healthcare, and legal services?
Oh, I'd love to do that. And for that, I want to take the time to tell you a story that will help me illustrate the value that we create for organizations. And
awesome.
Yeah, oh, I love it, Johnny. This one's special. It's special for me because it happened to me several years ago. It's when a client of mine made me the offer of a lifetime, the chance to make a difference, translate more than financial reports or banking reference documents, or the chance to make a difference for people out there. So that chance came from a Canadian NGO that works from UNESCO. And they work with UNESCO to enhance nutrition in developing countries, particularly for women, girls, and children. In a few words, their mission is to help young families survive and, if possible, thrive in challenging humanitarian conditions in regions at risk of war or famine, or in worst cases, even both. Its program's efficiency hinges on its ability to communicate properly in local languages, its ability to be understood by populations at risk, that is. So I managed to help them overcome this obstacle by translating guides used by field workers and localizing cooking recipes, among other manuals, basing my work on available or supplied food, and by converting measuring units, for example, other metrics as well. This project also required detachment, as you can imagine, but I did poorly at this. I can still see myself typing with a tight throat and describing lines of malnourished young mothers holding their newborns, waiting in line in front of UNICEF tents in order to receive zinc and vitamin A supplements. I'll never forget this experience, and I do find comfort in the fact that programs like this one can be delivered in local languages. As a little wheel crank, the little wheel crank that I was, I may have helped the world go a tiny bit rounder. And for me, that's the most important lever that we as translators and interpreters bring to international organizations. Now, come and tell me that what we do as translators and interpreters is not valuable. Now, I'd like to change the mood to something lighter and give you a less emotional way to look at our critical role as language professionals, risk mitigations. As we all know, organizations don't like risk. And with the spreading of AI, there's a scary, well-founded prospect related to liability for copyright violations, misinterpretation, content deformation, or other inaccuracies. There's a well-founded prospect related to the traceability of interpreters' interventions through legal proceedings, related to the responsibility of machine translation software developers for mistakes, or of translators who use machine translations, or MTs, that are still inaccurate. And finally, well-founded prospect related to the maximum level of acceptable risk, if there is an acceptable risk, So much so that last year, our British colleagues initiated the debate as part of a conference called Words to Deeds held at the University of Cambridge. And here's what they gathered so far. 1, we don't know if, how, or when translation agencies, freelancers, software manufacturers, or insurance companies will be held liable or even willing to take on or share the risk. Plus, the ruling in the landmark New York Times versus OpenAI trial will play a critical role in the spreading of machine translation and interpreting. And finally, the risk is new. It's never been defined before, let alone assessed. In other words, we don't have a plan yet. So here's my message to organizations who tuned in today. Don't rush for the new cost and time-saving machine before you know what you're getting into. Partner with translators and interpreters instead. We are more than sentence builders. We are research and cross-referencing professionals. We make sure there are no mistakes that raise liabilities. That's our job.
I agree. So we know that some professions, like those of doctors, lawyers, and engineers, are regulated. Can you explain why the language professions should be regulated and protected as well?
Oh, that's going to be my pleasure, Johnny. We never hear or read about it. It's not on the 6 o'clock news. It's not in the papers. It's novel. It's almost never even featured on LinkedIn. I mean, the regulation of language professions. Now, since our work allows countries with more than one official language, or countries that trade with others, plus courts of law, The Hague, for example, our work allows community organizations and NGOs to function properly. And since difficult work conditions and low rates make it difficult to attract qualified professionals, our professions should be regulated and our work conditions be protected, because that way it will be much easier for institutions and courts of law and countries to find qualified interpreters and professionals. And in light of increasing population movements, migrations, and considering the growing linguistic minorities in countless countries, the issue has become severe enough to attract the attention of professional language associations, like those of the UK, Belgium, and 4 American states, among others. They started advocating for the regulation of language professions a few years ago already. The issue is even so severe that even former UK Supreme Court President, Lady Brenda Hale, had to step in. As part of the Cambridge University conference I mentioned earlier, she took the stand, and this is what she said. Quote, "The absence of regulated translation services keeps the legal system from functioning properly." Functioning properly. Anybody's not clear? That's what I thought. In addition to the liability and traceability issues raised at the conference and that I mentioned earlier, here are potential solutions brought forward by that event, by speakers at that event. 1, provide desks and computers for interpreters in courthouses to recognize the critical work that they do officially. 3, provide them with formal ethics training and give them logistical support to facilitate their work day to day. Finally, yes, define and protect their working conditions and their pay. So here's my message to our respective jurisdictional authorities who tuned in today. If the problem is severe enough to be raised by a former Supreme Court president, it's time you took notice.
Thank you, Patrice. Now, in light of what we already addressed, do you have tips for beginners that you can share?
Sure, absolutely. I have many. Some I've already shared on LinkedIn. Some I will share for the first time with all of you today. And I understand that there's a lot of information circulating about the language industry, software, CAT tools, and since November 2022, ChatGPT. I can only imagine how the younger generation of translators and interpreters feels. I mean, I feel puzzled at times myself, and I have to read about it every day to stay on top of things. First, I wish to share basic insights that I've gathered over the years, especially for beginners. First, once you've completed your linguistic studies or have become a highly skilled and specialized professional with additional language training, you may want to consider joining a professional body for networking purposes, building a list of direct clients through your contacts or your community, working for agencies, or even NGOs like Global Voices or Translators Without Borders. Oh, and here's another good one. Check out Canada's Lyon Translation Academy for timely industry-focused webinars and workshops. They complement the former training at uni perfectly. Check them out. Then, if you've begun getting regular work, there are 4 other things I wish to remind you of. First, cold sweat is normal, especially in the first 1 to 3 years. I remember getting jobs and not being perfectly comfortable at first because they were slightly outside of my comfort zone, or getting my first reviews or my first edited translations from agencies, and I got the cold sweats. And that's when I started taking notes and putting them in a searchable database so I would not repeat my mistakes. Then I put also my research results and client terminology answers in the same database. And finally, I started archiving my bilingual pairs of text that I translated and that were edited, and also reference documents I found while doing research for my translations. Finally, don't put your eggs in the same basket. Work with a mix of direct clients and agencies. Vary their geographic locations and audiences, since economic cycles are not synchronized across regions and markets. This way, it will help you balance your volume of work, your demand of volume from one month to the next. And remember, diversification is not only for financial portfolios, it also works wonders for client portfolios, especially for freelancers like us. So work smart and use the takeaway from your experiences so you won't make the same mistakes twice. In a second set of tips for beginners, here are tools that I've learned to use over the years to execute my translations more effectively. Yes, I'm talking about CAT tools, which means computer-aided translation tools. The best known are Studio, MemoQ, and Phrase. They're powerful pieces of software that allow you to process source documents and type your translations in parallel columns. They use what we call translation memories, or TMs, that make the whole process faster and more efficient if you fed your archives into the TMs. Also, there are alignment and indexing software packages like Copernic or Logiterm, for example. I use that software to create bytext. In my case, that means English and French versions of the same documents displayed in 2 synchronized columns. I use it to search my massive archives, and there are a lifesaver, not just a time saver, they're a lifesaver. Then I built my own very term-based, the one I mentioned earlier. It's in FileMaker Pro, but there are other software packages. You can use Logiterm. I created a proprietary bilingual combination dictionary and concordancer because when I started to work years ago, nothing like that existed. Even today, no bilingual combination dictionaries are available. Mine contains client preferences and restrictions, the results of 25 years of research, including reference entries, combinations, of course, but also idioms, concordances, and even notes on typography, since I use Canadian and European French. It provides me with fast, accurate, and client or topic-specific search results. This next one may not look like an obvious support tool, but it makes a huge difference for focus and productivity. It's my own purpose-built music playlists on Spotify. Thanks to them, I stay focused and can maintain pace all day. They do make a difference, and at the end of the day, I did manage to translate more words or edit more words and deliver more for clients. One last tool that's going to sound odd, but before you consider hiring, or before you can afford an accountant, you could consider a piece of software like ACPAC Simply Accounting for small businesses. As a freelancer, my invoicing volume is low, of course, so I can't do it myself and actually save money by recording my own transactions. So if you have some training in accounting and wish you to do it yourself, it's not a significant investment, and it will save you back and forth time with your accountant and also a big invoice. So consider that if you can. In a third set of tips, here are a few pro tips to attract translation clients. Avoid saying things, especially in your posts, like, I have so many diplomas and I use the latest technologies and I have so many clients or accumulated this much money and I'm rolling on gold and so on. That's not going to work. It's not going to attract anybody. Instead, show how you individually help your clients communicate, convince, or sell. Show how you helped one client to eliminate the risk of getting sued, for example, or even how you helped another win a foreign market, because those things matter. They are solutions to pain points that our potential clients live with every day. And most importantly, highlight the fact that the results that you gave your clients are based on experience as well as your intimate knowledge of their concerns or their field, because that's what makes your results repeatable. If the results are repeatable, potential clients, organizations are going to be attracted to your offer. In other words, it's not about being scholarly or the fastest or about losing weight over work, and I know this because I've done it. It's about accepting to listen to constructive feedback, accepting to make notes when errors are pointed out. It's about never stopping incorporating corrections into your work. And as I've said before, it's accepting to save the notes and corrections in a searchable database. I repeat, by building this database, you create quick access to your clients' preferences and prohibitions, and also lessons learned and results from continuous research. To summarize, as a new freelancer, you've got to learn fast, because keeping clients is a shaky proposition, especially when you're starting out. Now, in the first few years, you may want to prioritize translation agencies to build a stable work volume and income. So I may suggest 5 easy ways to approach agencies as a freelancer. First, read agency reviews on specialized platforms. Then ask your colleagues about their experience if they work with those agencies. Ask collaborators for social proof about agencies. Take the time to read the agency's websites. And finally, read, of course, their LinkedIn profile, because you're going to find very targeted information there. That being said, here's what not to do when beginning your translation careers, because those are mistakes that I've made myself a long time ago. Studying something other than translation in uni, acquiring experience in an unrelated field, or, I've done this, sending agencies an unrelated CV. This sounds obvious, but it is how I got started 25 years ago, and so I'm not preaching by example, and I don't recommend it today. But since then, I have networked through industry associations and events a lot, studied under 2 mentors, acquired solid experience, and applied a specialty acquired in uni. Now, if I had to do it again, here's what I would do. I'd get a translation degree, join a professional association early, network, and finally acquire experience through online platforms and agencies. Now for my 4th and last set of tips, the meat of the bone for professional linguists, the young and the restless. I'm talking about artificial intelligence. And here's the thing. AI, ChatGPT, neuronal machine translation or NMT, large language models or LLMs, etc., are not here to replace you. They are new competitors that can do parts of your job, like first drafts of very basic translations, or better yet, automated repetitive tasks. Like any other type of competitor, they're pushing us to outdo ourselves as translators or interpreters, move upscale where bespoke translations become critical, and find novel ways to attract the attention of our organizations, novel ways to develop unique solutions to their problems. During the 19th century Industrial Revolution, or during the 1990s online threat to traditional printing, for example, workers and businesses have survived and thrived by moving upscale. This means strategic marketing and personal branding. Those are the 2 tools, the main tools that you need after uni to survive and thrive as translators and interpreters in 2024 and beyond. So first of all, what is strategic marketing? Well, if you're regular on LinkedIn, you must have seen countless posts on the topic. And let me try and put it in a nutshell for you. Strategic marketing is a discipline that allows you to figure out who your ideal client is. That can be based on your specialty. You may have acquired through personal preferences, a second training program in uni or somewhere else, acquired through previous experience, your reading list, only you know. Then you have to figure out what your ideal client's main communication problem is, what unique solution you can develop with your translation skills to fix their problem. Finally, how to promote your solution through posts in different social media, starting with the professional one, LinkedIn, of course. To promote your solution on social, you need to study copywriting. Copywriting will make your posts attractive and impactful. It will help you attract your ideal client and get them to choose you over AI or post editing, for example. Second of all, what is personal branding? Again, you must have read numerous LinkedIn posts on it. Let me try and summarize those for you as well. Let's start with corporate brands because we all know them. They're readily identifiable and their trademarks are readily identifiable. I mean, raise your hand if you can't spot a Coca-Cola or Ferrari logo. Yeah, nobody? Right. Countries too have brands. Take the UK, for example. British manufacturers stamp their national flag on countless products, from jars of strawberry jam to rooftops of motor cars, while individual professions like freelancers can do the same. We all have a brand. And how is that? Well, our brand is our voice. It's our signature. It's the way others see us when they hear our name or see our face next to a post, for example. We may not be aware of it, but we do have a brand, and people do perceive us a certain way. So a brand we do have. So if we already have a brand, why not define it? By that, I mean control how others, including ideal clients, perceive us. Here's what you can do to define and control your brand. Based on your specialty, select your personal angle in your field, your own way of approaching it. Then, using copywriting, develop your own writing style to make your posts recognizable. That's going to be your voice. And then, based on circumstances, based on the news, based on trends, choose how you're going to react to them. Those are going to be your tones of voice. You want examples? Here's one, myself. Oh, I know Patrice. He's that Canadian. He talks about explaining and regulating language professions since they are so misunderstood. He's not saying no to AI, but he's not letting himself be replaced either. He's the one who says, hey, AI is a tool. It needs someone to hold the handle. So that is how people will remember you, because you took a stand. You have an opinion. You have your own angle, and people remember that. And they also remember the way you say what you say when you post on LinkedIn. Now, once you've defined your ideal client and your brand, you need to post regularly to become top of mind for your ideal clients. Let me explain how I approach posting without going into too much detail, because that would be a marketing coach's job, which is not my field of specialty. I post 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's a minimum. The ideal frequency is something like 5 times a week. Some people prefer 6, some prefer 4, some even do it every day. But to write enough content to post regularly, create a content plan in which you schedule your posts. To get enough ideas, I suggest you read a lot. Read the posts of your colleagues. Read the posts of your ideal clients. Read relevant books and magazine articles. Watch the news. And if that's not enough, prompt platforms like Quora or Ask the Public. Those platforms have helped me find topics and content ideas. You can even prompt ChatGPT if you want to. It's a good research assistant. To make your post appealing, you may want to add a selfie, a picture specific to a topic, a carousel you created in Canva, or even a Twitter quote template that you also created in Canva. Under your post, don't forget to reply to every comment, going something like this. Hey, Yasmin. Hi, George. Hey, Natalia. Thanks for weighing in. I like what you've added, and I would have said it different, or I would have said it differently, or I beg to differ, politely, of course. You know what I mean. Then I end with, hope you're well, wish you a lovely day, have a great weekend ahead, etc., etc. That type of thing. If time allows, structure your comments like mini posts. They will have more impact. But remember, reply to each and every comment, and don't forget to reply to every creator who shares your post. It's very, very important. In turn, do comment on their posts of colleagues, under posts of creators in complementary professions, and of course, under the posts of your ideal clients. Never ever forget them. When the exchanges of comments under your ideal client's post become regular, try carrying out the conversation you started in the comments to the direct messages column. Keep the conversation going, making it about the potential client, not about you or about how incredible you are, even if you are incredible. Ask them questions instead. Get them to talk about their communication problems. When you see a problem for which you have developed a unique solution, point it out casually. Make it sound natural. Don't offer your services directly. Wait for them to ask you about what you do. Then answer the questions if they probe you directly. You're going to win some and you're going to lose some, and that's okay. What matters is that you never give up. It's a long-term game. Now, I'm not a marketing professional. I'm a translator, as you know, and also a book and content ghostwriter. I study strategic marketing and personal branding with a top-level expert. She's the one who taught me everything I just shared with you about marketing today. And if you wish to know more, you can follow her on LinkedIn. Her name is Deborah Prosomeriti. She's very easy to find. I chose to work with her because, like many of you, I'm an introvert, and copywriting didn't come naturally to me, quite the opposite. Plus, when ChatGPT arrived in the fall of 2022, I felt disarmed, like you, and afraid of losing my business, even after 23 years of serving satisfied clients. My work volume did go down at first, and that was very scary. But when I started working with my coach, the work volume firmed back up, and that made me feel so much better. So there you have it. Marketing is the key in 2024. The key to being known, the key to be recognized, the key to becoming the go-to professional in your field of specialization. Because after all, we will always matter. We are the ones who process machine translation outputs to give them a voice, to give them a tone, a context, or a national flavor. As interpreters, we are the ones who avoid misunderstandings in courts, in community services and hospitals. And without us, mistakes in a healthcare or diplomatic setting can and will have disastrous consequences. To give you an example I posted about recently, just think of the 80 babies who died or came to harm seriously in only 4 years in UK hospitals due to the absence of an interpreting budget. The absence of interpreters forced nurses to resort to Google Translate in the face of complications during delivery. Machine translation never allowed mothers and medical staff to understand one another, and it's a crying shame. I can't believe that actually happened. So don't forget, we matter. I hope my short experience with marketing will prove helpful to you, and I would like to thank you very, very much for your time and your patience for listening. I wish you all a great time in the company of my outstandings. Please stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Patrice. And, that was fantastic. First of all, thank you for sharing a lot of gems, very valuable information. It will be replayed on LinkedIn. But I just want to kind of, for those that are maybe just joining or aren't already following your great content on LinkedIn, you are going to be sharing that. Obviously, after this, we have links for all of our participants and are easy to find. But Patrice Dussault is a translator, English, French, content writer on economics, culture, and society for companies, NGOs, and governments. Again, you can easily find him on LinkedIn. His company, again, Capisco Inc. Reach out to him. I did want to read, since we have a few minutes here, Patrice, there was a comment, and I hope that I'm pronouncing correctly the name here. Ayman Haji, Moroccan trilingual interpreter, Arabic, English, and French. I just commented on during your presentation, in my country, it's not only a branding problem, but also a regulation problem. There is no legal framework under which the profession operates, nor is there a National Translators Interpreters Association advocating for the profession. So we appreciate the comment, and it kind of echoes what is a shared, again, challenge or need in different parts of the world. So thank you for that. Another comment, I think, here, just wanted to share this. We have various viewers here. Judith Gary is a translator, certified translator, French to English, and mentions here, excellent tips, Patrice. My question is, how preparing all your posts does not take all your time away from actual translation? This is my biggest challenge. Did you want to respond to that? We have some minutes here.
Yes, I'd love to. And Judith, your question is so relevant, and it's something that I've struggled with for a very, very long time. What I set up with my marketing coach is a content plan in which I create posts in advance. I batch write posts using ideas that I gather from reading colleagues and complementary professions and our own target clients, but also that I gather from reading news or watching the news from different countries. And then I don't use AI tools to write my first drafts, but I do use the frameworks from my marketing consultant, and they help me tremendously. They help me write a little bit faster. So what I do is I block a time block in my week, let's say half a day or a full day during the week, and that time block is dedicated to writing and writing alone. I don't do anything else, and I don't get any distractions from my phones or emails or anything. And I put all my ideas on a shared document in Google Docs that my marketing consultant will review with me at a later session. And what else? And then I put them in this content plan, which is actually a calendar. And that in every calendar has a date, topic, and objective, and then it's attached to it's accompanied by a picture or a video or a Canva creation or carousel or whatever, and everything is planned ahead of time. So when Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning comes, 8 a.m., everything is already set up. I just go and copy paste my pre-written post onto the LinkedIn create a post space, and then I go and on my hard drive get the appropriate image, video, or quote, or whatever I decided to create, carousel, and then I hit on post. And basically that's how I do it. So you have to plan it. You block an amount of time each week, 3, 5, 6 hours, 8 hours max, and you create nonstop. And during the rest of the week, you concentrate on serving your own translation clients, because, of course, I know as well as you do that when you're not typing translations, you're not paid at all, because we are still paid by the word. So when you're not typing translations, your income is zero. So that's why you need to block that time. And outside the time block for content creation, you just serve your clients. I hope that that answered your question correctly.
That was great. Yeah, and for all of those tied in that are in the chat, please continue sending in your questions, your comments. We appreciate you being here. If we don't have time to get to your question during this session, we will certainly do that offline. But as time allows, as we just did, we'll certainly try our best to have our speakers respond to you live. Just taking advantage here of the last few minutes as we are within our schedule here, which is great. With the marketing piece specifically, one, that was a question I had, but the other thing is too, and we're going to have some of our other speakers discuss this, is what you just commented on just now, Patrice, is the fact that, a lot of times many in this profession, specifically translation, that you're a thought leader with. It's a challenge of getting out of what is that introverted comfort zone of just, doing this because it is very much behind the scene, and nothing wrong with that. But looking at the marketing element for what it is, one, the need for it, and how it really is an investment worth making, because what you just spoke to, you saw that by just really making that extra effort, the return on investment was undeniable. So I think for those watching right now, beginners, maybe even experienced interpreters or translators, since we have a mixed group, of really deciding, is it worth the time and money? Because again, there are some of these things that, whether it's coaching or having a marketing specialist, technician, is it really worth me doing that? What would you say to them? Just, again, you touched on it, but just to make that clear, because I think a lot of times, it's like, well, I've got to eat, and if I'm paying for that, am I really going to see that come back to me in the form of, revenue? What would you say?
Oh, that's a key question there. For private companies, especially the smaller ones, the investment may seem overwhelming. And of course, traditionally, translating and interpreting services have been considered services. So they appear in their accounting books, they appear in the expense column, instead of appearing in the capitalized the capital column, the one in which you invest money and from which you expect an ROI. And if you take the real value of translation and take it away from the expense column, immediately increasing your bottom line, and you take that amount, you simply transfer it across your financial statements into the capital, the investment column, along with the other, like purchase of equipment, buildings, or carving out mines, or whatever you're into, your industry is in.
Mm-hmm.
And you just add that budget into, and then you're not going to consider it, see it as enormous as you did before, because it's not in the right in the same column as before. It's not in the expense column, and your immediate current year bottom line just increased because you have one less expense. Instead of putting it in the expense, record it among your capital expenses instead, your investments. And that's another portion. And you're not going to see it. It's going to help you see it very differently. So that's what I suggest companies, the large and the small.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, no, I appreciate your subject matter expertise. And, you are really surgical as it pertains to, how you've been able to, not just from your glossaries, you've also published some, specific language in the automotive field, which again, we've spoken to in the past. But I also appreciate the fact that you're a living example of someone who perhaps, wasn't the most comfortable putting yourself out there, like many that are watching right now. But it really shows that putting that extra effort for your own brand, for your own visibility, and really letting others in a little bit on who you are goes a long way. So as we conclude here, definitely want to give you a couple minutes for any final words you had, but wanted to share for those watching. Again, all of our speakers can be easily found on LinkedIn. We'll have links to all of them if you want to reach out to them and connect and follow. But also, if you are kind of on that line of what do I do? I'm motivated. I want to kind of take some steps. You can DM any one of us here. I'd be happy to, again, provide whatever assistance we can, whether it's through the J3 Collab project, which is producing this event. We work with small businesses of many different disciplines. Of course, language services is one of them. Just DM me. We can definitely help you out, see what your needs are, get you out there, get you seen, and have others discover the talent that you have. Any final words, Patrice, for you as we kind of conclude your presentation?
Yeah, two things. One, if you're to all the introverts out there, all to the cavemen and cavewomen out there who are scared of going out and venturing out of their comfort zone, let me use an analogy here. It's like on Netflix sci-fi productions. You know, you see the main character approaching a porthole. It's like a watery wall, and you don't know what's on the other side of it, and they're approaching very carefully. At first, they only put their hand through it, and there's no pain, nothing happened. Then they put a shoulder in, and then they walk entirely through and discover a whole new world. That's how I see it, and try and see it that way because it is scary, and you do have cold sweats, and you go, "Oh my God, this is so incredible! It's not going to work. I'm sweating, and I'm scared, and I'm going to make so many mistakes." And at first, you aren't going to make mistakes, but how you grow because you can't become better if you don't practice. And the only way to practice is to do it in public. And don't forget, you're surrounded by other introverts, so they will understand you and they will cheer you on. Second, I would like to thank you, Johnny, for this immense opportunity. You and Michael are exceptional professionals, and you've helped me all the way through, and you helped me feel better and less nervous. And you guys are a peach. And my colleagues that we're about to listen to, please stay tuned because they're going to be immensely helpful as well. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you, my friend. So we are now going to introduce everyone again with our co-moderator as well as guest speaker, Francesca Conti, who again is in Rome, Italy, and is a interpreter and translator, very multi-talented. And it's going to be speaking to us a little bit about some topics in line with our theme, right? Which is the hashtag more than bilingual. It's culture, it's localization, but then some realism as well, as we just heard Patrice talk about some of the challenges that we have, whether we're new or experienced. You're going to touch on some of these, Francesca. So thank you for joining us here. If you aren't already following Francesca, she can be easily found on LinkedIn as well, and we will certainly have that on our posts. If you haven't already clicked on them, we'll make sure you have a way to contact her directly. So thank you, Francesca, for being here and also accepting to share the stage with me today.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you so much for inviting me here. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity to help you as a co-moderator and to speak about my experience and to share my view about some crucial topics in the interpreting field.
Excellent. So I have a question for you, just kind of get things going, and then I'll step back and just listen like everybody else. Can you tell us how important is it to set the right rates for our profession? And why isn't it an easy task? And what are the factors we take into account? Inquiring minds want to know. Thank you.
Right. So certainly setting the right rates in our profession is crucial. And that of rates, it's definitely one of the most difficult and uncomfortable problems to deal with. One of those aspects of our profession that challenge us the most. Certainly at the beginning, but also after years and years of experience, as far as I can see, and based on what my colleagues are saying. And it's a problem that really exists and needs everyone's attention, starting from us to the client themselves, who need to be made aware of the issue. I'm honest, I'm a young interpreter, both because I'm 28 and because I started two years ago. But in my short experience, I've been faced with these difficulties, like many of us. And today I'm here to tell a little bit about my experience, because there are so many of us here today. And I know that among you, there are also young interpreters or students who are entering this complex world and who need guidance. So I hope to give you some inspiration in some way and to reassure you. So when I first entered this world after graduation, I was alone, and no one explained to me the basic rules of being a freelancer and having to run my own business. And unfortunately, there's never time to do it at uni, but instead, I think there is a need to devote an entire course to these topics so that one can make an informed decision, not only based on love for the profession, because sometimes it can be really difficult psychologically. And I didn't know how to present myself to agencies and clients. I didn't know how to sell myself. And in fact, I've made many mistakes, but they taught me a lot and they led me to develop what is my strategy today. Whether it is successful or not, I don't know, but it has brought me some satisfaction and it has brought me here today. If I hadn't identified an effective strategy, I wouldn't have been able to take my first steps as a freelancer. So it's all about finding what works for you. And another stumbling block for me was rates, how to set the right price for a specific service. I had no idea where to start. I didn't know what the right prices were. And I often saw and I often read colleagues complaining about a downward market. And that made me very anxious. Unfortunately, while I was working, I continued getting trained. And during my journey, I finally found a guide who was able to give me the right directions to start with. And it was easier from there. The issue is that we all come from different markets. So the prices in Italy are going to be different from what happens in Spain or in the US, in Canada and France and so on. So they change according to the economic situation of the country and the tax laws, especially. So things are constantly changing and there can't be a fixed rule for everyone. And that is the first thing that's difficult to manage and to understand. When we set a rate, we have to take into consideration several variables. First of all, the type of service that is required. Is it a simultaneous or a consecutive interpretation? Is it a liaison interpretation? So what are the working conditions as well? Consecutive, for example, is more difficult than simultaneous, so it has a higher cost than the other techniques. Will I have to work for a full day or a half day? Will I be alone or will I have a partner? What's the theme, the topic of the event? If it's very technical, there will be a lot of preparation to do, a lot of studying. And the time spent studying has to be paid for. I don't do it for free. So it is time that is sacrificed, time that we take away from our loved ones, our family, our passions, our free time. And that is critical if we spend so much time interpreting, translating, or teaching. If we do not consider the time it takes to prepare an event in the final rate, we end up sacrificing something again. Either we sacrifice ourselves or the quality of the service, and in neither case do we win. If we sacrifice quality, for example, we lose our credibility and professionalism, and our career may suffer. If we sacrifice our time without being paid for it, in the long run, we will run out of breath. And that becomes a toxic habit, And at that point, raising the price becomes more difficult. Plus, there are so many taxes to pay. And if we set the price too low right away, what do we gain? I suck at math, but I realized that by doing that, we are left with nothing in the end. And then another difficulty I experienced in the beginning, and I continue to experience, is getting clients and agencies to accept my rates. In fact, I've had more difficulty with agencies rather than with direct clients due to the fact that agencies have additional costs to bear and their earnings are greatly reduced. I'm not criticizing this. In the end, it's up to me whether to take or not a job based on the pay. But the real problem is the trend lately, which is that of a kind of downward market from which is very difficult to get out, considering a saturated market with strong competition. And what I want to say is that we must not be afraid to ask for the right price. We must believe in ourselves and our abilities, but above all, we must believe in the importance of our work and make it count. Because if we don't believe it, our clients won't believe it either. It all depends on how we treat ourselves, how we treat our time, and how we value our efforts. We have to believe firmly in the training that we have behind us, in the studies we have done, and we have to make clients understand that they are not paying us just for the hours of the event. That's not how it works. They pay us to receive quality, effective, and accurate service. They pay us for all the hours spent studying technical terminology. They pay us for professional training, for the courses we continue to take. So they pay us for the time and effort it has taken us to get this far. So in my opinion, we should set the prices that we think are the fairest, and then everyone will make their own assessments. No one says it's not possible to negotiate or to find a compromise. But if we start with a low rate, there's nothing to negotiate for in the end. So it's up to us to decide whether to accept or to reject.
So then what do you think could be the solution?
Right. Unfortunately, we can get rates from clients or agencies that have always offered miserable rates. We can get great rates from them. But if we contribute in our small to a change, that will take a long time at the beginning. But if everyone does something, we can see the results. I think the key solution is client education. Most of the time, clients who contact us and request our presence have no idea what we do. They think it's an innate quality of ours or that we are like monsters. But they also believe that we are living dictionaries and that know everything about everything, but we actually do not. What we can do from time to time is to educate our clients about our profession and what it entails, to make them understand that what we know is the result of hours of study, and that before an event, we need to prepare ourselves on terminology, and that we need to receive confirmation as early as possible. For example, we have to receive the material within proper time and not 300 slides the day before the event. And often clients do not even have a clue about the techniques we use. They don't know what consecutive interpreting is all about, or they don't know that for the event, perhaps it would be necessary to implement booths if they need multiple languages, if there are many participants. Often they do not realize that for their event and its success, the interpreter is necessary, and that they cannot always rely on their colleague or friend who speaks English very well, who has lived abroad, or who is bilingual, because that person is not a qualified interpreter and doesn't know the specific language of the industry. So they need to understand that no one can improvise as an interpreter, and that if they want to save money on language service, their event will suffer. It will lose quality, so they will sacrifice quality. Saving money is never really the best solution. So we also need to make clients aware of why we earn that money, and make them understand that interpreters earn so much not because our voice is golden, but because our work is difficult. It is really difficult. When we set a rate, when we create our quotation, we take into account so many factors, like the ones we talked about earlier, and lowering the rate for us is a sacrifice, and we are not required to give discounts to anyone. For example, if we ask a lawyer for a service, or if we ask a plumber for help, or if we ask a builder to do work around the house, we are not asking them to lower the price. First, because we would be asking them to undervalue their work. And second, because if we want quality work, that work has to be paid for. And we know it. If we don't have the money, we won't call a professional. So we have to recognize that we are professionals, and what we do cannot be done by just anyone. And even this truth has its price. Our work cannot be done by a bilingual or someone who knows English. Neither can artificial intelligence, but this is a topic that we will discuss later on if you want to.
Thank you so much. that's a lot of helpful information for us, because if you're watching this, new to language services, new to what it is a translator does, there really are great examples that you use that are very practical and common sense. Next question: is it recommendable to accept an assignment when they offer really low rates? That's a question that comes up a lot.
Yeah, that's true. The thing that still remains too difficult for us is exactly the ability to say no when it's necessary or when the fee is too low, especially when we are at the beginning of our career and we would like to rock the world. We want to work and gain experience. And the only way we think it's possible to do that is to accept whatever is offered. And by refusing, we think that we are missing an opportunity. We are afraid that that client or that agency won't call us back because we're not serious or we're not making ourselves available. But what we need to understand is, and what we need to remember is exactly what we have just pointed out, which is that of our work deserves to be paid properly and not undervalued as certain agencies or certain clients often do. And by saying no when it's needed, we are reminding them of just that. We are reminding them that our work is worth more and that they cannot take advantage of the situation to devalue it. By saying no to a rate, and not only that, by saying no to even an assignment that seems too complicated for us, that it's not our cup of tea or that it's too difficult for the rate offered, we are simply giving a signal of professionalism that will be appreciated by those in the industry and also by the client, who will see our seriousness and that we are not jumping into a job recklessly. So we should not be afraid to say no if we feel it's right. It happened to me when I started out, and for a long time I thought and rethought about those choices, wondering whether I had missed an opportunity, And in the end, we always had to trust our instincts and our assessments. In fact, about a year ago, I happened to turn down an assignment from an agency because the assignment was not within my capabilities. And most importantly, for the service requested, the rate was very low, absolutely out of the market. So in the end, I refused, despite their insistence, which also seemed very strange to me. And a short time later, I found out from a colleague who had instead accepted the assignment for another language that this agency doesn't have a good reputation, and because it doesn't pay its interpreters and translators, and they didn't do so for that assignment either. So my instincts were right when I turned it down, and I had a confirmation that I did the right thing. Otherwise, I would also have been in an unpleasant situation. Now, this is another issue that I wanted to briefly address with you, with my colleagues and the audience, which is that of late payments or non-payments from clients and agencies ghosting us. This is one of the most difficult aspects, in my opinion, to deal with when you are a freelancer, because you never know how to behave, how you don't want to be seen as mistrustful, but you also think that it's not fair that you don't get paid for the work done, or that we get paid late when there is a deadline to meet. So now I want to turn directly to my colleagues if someone wants to step in, and to the audience if someone wants to share their own experience in our chats. We will have a Q&A session later. How do you handle the situation? Would you handle a situation like this? Have you ever found yourself struggling with clients who don't want to pay you or who disappeared when they were supposed to pay you? Because this is one of the things that really scares me the most about this market, because I often feel unprotected. So do you think there is a way to protect ourselves from these situations? Let me know what you think.
Yeah, let me see if we have any. 1 second.
Yeah, even later.
Yeah, we will definitely share those at the end on our roundtable.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, I have a question. When have been witnessing we've all been kind of seeing AI and its progression and evolution. And some people and clients often think that it can get the work done without the use of professional translators or interpreters. Do you think it will be an advantage or a disadvantage in our sector? And then relying on AI, does that really mean that it saves money? Kind of like an open question there. What would you respond to that?
Yeah, AI is definitely a hot topic today. It's an increasingly obvious reality that causes a lot of controversy. It is also a divisive topic, as some believe that AI is crucial and helpful in our work, while others believe that it represents the end of us. I personally don't believe it will take our jobs away from us permanently, or at least it will take a long time before that happens. Many see it as a monster, but I believe that AI is a tool that can work in our favor if used responsibly and intelligently. Think about CAT tools or the various interpreter support softwares that can transcribe an entire speech for us. Those who still have to figure it out, though, are always our clients, because that's when we come into play, trying to educate them about this as well. I see that people are increasingly fascinated and attracted to AI and what it is capable of doing, thinking that it can replace anyone, starting with interpreters and translators. What they need to understand is that the contribution of a human linguist is something you cannot give up if you want a great result. Our interpretation will always be what makes the difference, what makes it more natural and exciting also. Lately, I have come up against this reality in a very harsh way. One day I was sending emails to potential clients, introducing myself and proposing my services, when one of them wrote back to me and tell me that they would probably reduce languages for their events in the future, and they would rely on artificial intelligence for interpreting. And I was petrified in front of this response. It was very hard to accept it. For me, it was the first time that a client refused the help of a professional interpreter in favor of AI. So it seemed a very sad thing to me, not only because I saw my work being replaced by machines, but mostly because I know that these people are doing it to save money, and that they are fully aware of the risks and the fact that in order to save a few bucks, they are sacrificing the quality of the final result, and that none of this matters to them. The important thing is to save money. This really gets me sad and also frightened about my future. But as my time is almost up, I think I would like to close with a question again for my colleagues and the audience. I wanted to know, what is your relationship with AI? Do you think it's a monster or it is a tool that works in our favor? How can we educate clients to the realization that AI can never do as excellent job as a human interpreter or translator? Have you had any experiences like these? Have you ever experienced rejection in favor of AI? It would be nice if you could just share your experience.
Those are great questions, and we'll have the chat open. We'll definitely look at those either by the end of the program, or of course we can always respond offline. One thing we have a few minutes here. Great dialogue, and I really appreciate your experiences, telling us what you've encountered personally, because a lot of times it's hard to put in words what a translator or an interpreter goes through as we're looking for work and trying to make a career and trying to have a living wage, right? And so understanding that, again, in line with the theme, #MoreThanBilingual, is really that just having the bilingual proficiency does not necessarily guarantee someone is qualified to do a professional interpretation or professional translation. And, you touched on a few things in your comments about AI. And it's really understanding that while it can be a helpful tool, we talk about these cat tools, right? And, chat GPT and everything that they provide of maybe simplifying tasks and things, it still does not eliminate the need for subject matter expertise. I think one of the simple examples that I like to use a lot is something like Google Translate, which is very well known, that Google themselves does not use Google Translate to translate their legal or technical documents. That's just a fact. And that says a lot, right? Because while they're helpful tools, they don't substitute the need for having human intervention, having someone who understands the local culture, that really appreciates the messaging that the company, the brand is trying to make, so that you don't end up, missing, confusing, or worse yet, offending someone because you did not have someone who is fully immersed in that culture and has had the experience and the training to identify what the right words that are needed, and making sure that's well articulated for the target audience. So thank you so much for sharing all that. I think it was a wealth of knowledge, and also hopefully giving some insight for those that maybe think it's as easy as pushing a button, right? And that is not the case. And I think the examples you used earlier, I really appreciate it. When you talked about when we hire other professionals, right? A lawyer, plumber, a contractor, we hope that they use the latest technology and the tools to make their job most efficient, but they certainly don't discount the client. If anything, it's actually the opposite. Usually when they have the latest technology, a contractor or a plumber, that is going to be something that's passed on to the consumer so that they can pay for that investment that they made on themselves. Somehow, though, that does not transfer for some people in our profession, but it should, and it needs to. It needs to really change as far as how it's seen, that while technology and the advancements of how things are accomplished from a translation or interpretation standpoint does not, decrease the quality. It increases the quality, and higher quality deserves to be monetized appropriately. So, any final thoughts or comments that you wanted to share? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my final thought is to believe in yourself and your capabilities, believe in what you do and why you do it. More importantly, believe that your work matters and it's worth the price, and don't let anyone devalue it in any way, because you have to be the first one who respects your own work. If you don't believe in it, no one's going to. So we will always play the most important role in here. So
thank you. And I think we have another additional question, actually, from one of our fellow colleagues here. I'll let Patrice share that with you, since it's in line with what we were discussing. Go ahead, Patrice.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. I loved everything you said, Francesca, and it's so on point. Setting prices has always been difficult, or at best delicate traditionally. But since November 2022, the arrival of ChatGPT, it's been under increasing pressure. And the way that you approach the price setting in detail, and the tips that you gave to help convince clients, potential clients of our rates, I think will help many people today. I think you just did a big service to countless of our colleagues today. So I just wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed your speech.
Thank you, Patrice.
You're welcome.
So much.
Well, thank you again. I'm going to actually let you take over this next part of our presentation, because you'll be introducing our next guest. So I am going to say goodbye for now, and I'll be back after the next presentation. Thank you, and I hand it off to Francesca.
Okay, see you in a bit. All right. We have another important guest speaker today with us, who is Carmen Križanič. Sorry about my pronunciation, you will correct me later. So welcome, Carmen. It's a great pleasure to have you here.
Hello, Francesca. Thank you very much for having me here. And it's Carmen Križanič. I know it's difficult. It's not. It's not easy. Yes.
Križanič, perfect. So, just to give you a few insights about our guest, Carmen is a Slovenian interpreter and translator. She works with German and English. She is an expert. She has 20 plus years of experience in interpreting and translation. She's lived in Germany and also in Italy, but right now she's based in Slovenia. However, she has traveled a lot and her job has taken her to several places like Slovakia, Germany, Austria, Croatia, Switzerland, and Croatia as well. So she works on site. She works in many kinds of settings, such as boardrooms, production plants as well. She works in government meetings, but also remote is her passion. She's learning Greek, and she's also a person who loves nature, because I see that you love hiking.
Yes, that's true. This is very connected with my profession. I think it's a balance with interpreting and translating long hours at the computer, and hiking is like a balance. So if I start to speak about hiking, then we have complete another conversation.
Yes. Okay. So without further ado, I'll give the floor to Carmen and I will introduce her topic, which is taking care of your words.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's translating. It's very interesting, this this topic. Can you tell us what you mean by taking care of your words?
I think this is the meaning of our profession. I take it like this. Translating and interpreting is basically taking care of the client's words. So we are here to take care of their words to bring the message through. And with taking care of the words, of course, first is education for new translators and interpreters. And after education, usually we need a lot of practicing. And with practicing, I would recommend to everybody to take the chance to go practicing as much as possible. So practicing with agency or with private client, this means that you go and take the jobs. So the jobs which are in your professional field and nothing else. And don't be afraid, because you can learn from the assignment, you can learn from participants of the assignment, you can learn from the speakers, from technical staff. You can learn local conditions of your market or international conditions. So basically you gain always. And with on-site interpreting, it's very interesting because you get in contact sometimes also with your end client, so with your speaker or the presenter at the event. And this is very good. If agency introduces you to them, then you can speak with them and you can explain the importance of their speech, the importance of the speed, because if they speak too fast, it is difficult to bring the message through. And it's very positive because, especially if you work in the booth and you can speak with the client, to discuss with them signs how to stop them or how to slow them down, because some of them even they ask me also at the event sometimes, can you please slow me down, give me a sign to speak slower. So because also they know it's important, they are not too fast, then you can translate and you can interpret correctly. And on site, if you are working with the client, sometimes also if the agency doesn't introduce you to the speaker or the presenter, you can go and introduce yourself. And this is the human connection, because they see also the face behind the voice. And this is important. They know there is somebody there who will bring their message through. And very important on site is also the contact with, we call it with personnel who is responsible for technical stuff. I have a lot of respect for them because of the amount of cables and connections I always see at events like this. It's very interesting. And also, if you don't have a lot of experience, you can speak with them because they have more information. They have informations about previous events, about previous moderators or speakers, and they can help you with this information. This is very good. And with technical support, it is very important now. We learned a lot alone what to do, but also it's very important to have good collaboration because they are a part of the assignment, so a part for interpreting. And with practicing after you take care of practicing, there is another part which is very important, especially for interpreters. This is taking care of preparation, how you prepare for your assignment. And the most important thing here is how to prepare the materials, where do you get them, how do you ask for them, and when do you ask for them. So you have to ask for these preparation materials in advance and not in the last second. And also it is important here the communication with your client, how you explain this, because some of the clients, like dream clients, they send you preparation materials in advance, but there are clients who don't do this, or they don't have this preparation material, or they are not aware why is this important. And this is why it's good that when you communicate with your client, that you also explain why do you need this preparation material. And with preparation material, it is today much easier than it was years ago, because today you can also find a lot of information alone online. You can find it in social media, you can find it in newspapers. Some companies have Facebook pages or TikTok pages where they share the newest technologies and events. So it is not very hard to get this preparation material, and I would advise not to just always rely only on your client, because it takes just few minutes and you can find it alone. But it's important that if you get preparation material from your client, that you stick with this, what they have sent you, and don't go around them. This would be very important in preparation. And the next thing in preparation would be important. So social media, we already said. With LinkedIn, this is, I think I don't have to explain because we have event on LinkedIn, but very important here is how you present yourself as an interpreter or translator. And I think it's important that you present yourself in a positive way, because last time I see a lot of posts with very negative information from our business, which is normal. We have to share if there is something not okay. But some information is like complaining, or even sometimes mocking the clients because they don't know the things, or they do some things which are not okay in our business. And I think this is not giving the positive side of our profession, because also on LinkedIn here the clients find us. And if I look from my own experience, if I have a seller who is selling me shoes or a car, and he's complaining or even making fun of previous client, I would not trust him. So this is I think we have to be very careful what we share on LinkedIn. We should make aware. We should speak to our clients, also making aware about important things, but not in a negative way. I think this is one thing we have to consider. And when we are taking care of our preparation, we have to take care also of our practice. Here is one practice I would recommend for all who are new in this profession, shadowing. This is very important and very helpful. And also if you have events before the event, if you make a session of shadowing, this is really helpful because this is an exercise where you listen to the speech and you repeat this speech in the same speed, but you repeat what you hear, and this is very good practice. And another thing in preparation, what I would recommend is preparing of the menu. Sometimes we get our preparation materials, sometimes we get our speeches, and of the menu, this means you prepare more broader.
Okay, Carmen, what do you mean by broader? Can you explain it to us?
This means that you don't study only the speech you get for interpreting. Like if you have an event for agriculture and you have some speeches, especially if you're new, I think it's very good that you prepare also terminology from broader, so the latest developments in agriculture, the newest technologies, the political situation or legislative situation in agriculture. And this is giving you more confidence. So when you're in the event and you know the speakers, sometimes they stray away from their speeches, you're comfortable because you know you're prepared and you know what they will speak about. So this makes it more easier on you. And with preparation, so with taking care of preparation, important here is also flexibility, but not only flexibility in terms of developments, but more the flexibility in terms of that you're flexible about the time, the location, the speakers, basically everything about event. Because in the late time, a lot of things are changing very fast. So I had events where there was location changed, where there were speakers changed, where there also the field, also the theme was changed, and this is very important that you stay flexible. I had also an event where they changed the languages because they knew I have English and German language. I was booked for German language, and at the event they asked me if I could do it in English. So usually this would not be a problem, but we know we have to study special terminology, and this was an external audit for a production company with very specific field, and this was not an easy task. But I remember that I had an event with similar terminology, so I could change the language as they asked me. So this was very good, but flexible. We have to be flexible all the time.
Absolutely, Carmen. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. What you say, it's really true about flexibility because anything can happen during an event. So you need to be available. You have to stay flexible all the time,
Yes.
and you have to act like nothing is a problem to you because you are there to solve any problem. So
exactly.
Yeah.
As you said, that we are support for our clients there.
Absolutely.
This is
We have to
our
be
job.
helpful.
Yes.
Absolutely. And can you tell us how can we take care of our clients? Because you're speaking about taking care of different factors in our profession. So we also need to take care of our clients, right?
Yes, right. We have to take about of our clients, and then the clients will take care also of us. But the important here is what I mean with taking care of clients. It is to take care of them, to know their field, to know their technology, to know their vision, their motto, so to know their contact persons and what is important to them, because this way we can help them. A lot of clients come only with a request for translation of one page, but when we check the client and we want to care for them, then we see maybe they have a very bad web page or they don't even have translated it. So then we can help them. We can offer them our services or services from our colleagues, and this is very important. And with taking care of clients, I also mean taking care to make them easy to book you. So don't be a complicated interpreter or translator, because they have it complicated enough in their business. They are searching for simple solutions, so make it easy to them to book you, make a simple offer without any secret text or something like this. Make it easy to take the preparation material, just get the material prepared in the background, and make it easy on the job. So you are there, you go, you interpret, leave the event in most kind and professional manner, and make it easy for them also with invoicing. So you invoice only this what you have agreed, and if there is, so don't invoice any hidden costs or something. And if you see on the assignment that it could be different costs or more costs, then you should reach out to them and to have their okay for this cost. So later you will not have problem with invoicing and everything. So this is what I mean, taking care of the client. And the next thing of taking care would be our health, but I think this should be on priority. So on the first on the first part, because taking care of our health is very important in translating, interpreting, especially because this is not mentioned in the most of schools. It is not mentioned before you start with this profession. And I know a lot of colleagues who just started this profession. We translated, interpreted, and then suddenly we had health issues like with back or burnout or a lot of different issues. And always we got the answer, oh, this is because you don't take care of your health. But when you are young, you can take everything. So later comes the invoice for your behavior always. And I think it's important that we make this aware also to young interpreters and translators, that they should take care of their health from beginning on.
Okay, you're absolutely right. So how can we take care of our health? Do you have any suggestions?
I have several suggestions because I had to learn it the hard way through my difficult experiences with my health. So today I stick to my suggestions, and I think there are a few things which are very important, like food, that you prepare your fresh food, that you don't eat processed food. I think today a lot of people even do this, but with food, I don't mean only to buy it. So you can also forage it. You can also go into herbalism. There are a lot of things you can learn today, also in courses, how to prepare your own food, because this is giving you a very good satisfaction. And the second thing, it's very important when you prepare your own food, when you smell the fresh ingredients and the cooking, your body receives the message it can calm down, the stress is over. So this is a part of relaxations when relaxation when you cook and prepare your own food. And this brought me also that I started with herbalism, preparing my own teas, making my own creams also. This is big satisfaction, because from when you go from your computer, from your translations, you can create something you see. Otherwise, everything stays in the computer, so the text and everything. So the food is very important, and as much important it is to eat good food and well prepared food, it is also important to give your body rest from the food. So to make fasting, and I would really recommend this because it gives your body a lot of energy. It gives rest from all the processes, and your mind and your thinking becomes more clearer. And I do regular fasting now for 1 year, just to start with 1 day, and then you go 2 days and 3 days. And when you see the results, I think then you will stick to it. But with fasting, it should be discussed with your doctor, or you should find more information online or something like this. But this has a really positive effect on your health and on your concentration when you are working. And with fasting, then there is another thing, also meditation. Probably a lot of translators and interpreters are meditating. I never did this before in my life. So for last 7 years, I started with meditation, and just started like with an app. I think the name is Headspace. And with this app, it makes it very easy. You start with 1 minute, you can go 5 minutes and then prolong it. And this makes it easy to go into meditation. After you start to meditate alone, or you start to use guided meditations, there are good resources online for this. And I think this is very important, because since I started with meditation, I can do longer sessions of interpreting, and I can do more clearer sessions of interpreting. So it's boosting also your concentration and really reducing stress, because as you said it before, our profession is very, very stressful. And another thing which I would recommend and help me a lot is just getting outside in the nature. This is big recommendation from me, because it's really reducing your stress, it's clearing your mind, you get fresh air, your immune system goes up. So there are only good benefits. I started to going outside with shorter walks after I had a burnout, and this was really a thing which was very helpful to me. But it is not easy. If you are someone who likes to sit on with coffee and or go shopping, and then suddenly you have to go in the nature, you will be probably bored, or you will not find any satisfaction. But it's important that you take it in, that you feel where you are, that you listen where you are, that you hear maybe the birds, or speak even with other people, so outside of your profession, outside of your working day. And this is giving your body and your brain really a break from the stressful day. This would be my recommendation. So this walking brought me then to hiking, and with hiking, it's like with interpreting and translation, you want more and more and more. This is I think it's addictive. So very important. And
what about physical exercise? Since we are talking about physical and mental health,
yes,
that also can be helpful, right?
Yes, especially if you do hiking, this is a physical exercise. And another is also weightlifting, which is very important, because I had very strong back problems, and also they tried to medicate it, and nothing was helping, and nothing was really wrong. There was no injury or nothing. I was just told to lay down and do nothing, but you cannot live like this. So weightlifting is very important, because the problem with the back was just because there was not enough strength in the muscles to hold the body up, and we are sitting all the time, so our muscles are going down and down with their power. It's important weightlifting, but it's important to stick with it. So you have to do it regularly. And also I would recommend, if you are new in this, to start with a trainer. If you already have back problems, to start with a trainer who is specialized for back problems, because somebody who doesn't have the knowledge can do more harm than good in this situation. So this would be the main points about health. So how to take care of your health. And important is also here to take care of your network. We also know this. It's important to have a good and strong network. You can build it your own, or you can join some other network of professionals, of colleagues, which is very helpful because you can share with them negative aspects and also positive aspects of your work. You can check with them, agencies or companies, if they are good agencies, if they are good companies. You can check with them sometimes prices, what price do they offer. And you can find here also comfort, because you need sometimes in our profession comfort when you have tough situations with clients or with colleagues. And then it's important to have a good network background.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Thank you so much, Carmen, for sharing your experiences and your ideas, especially your struggles. So thank you for being so brave, because you kind of expose yourself to us and the whole audience. And yeah, you spoke of true things, and
Yes.
thank you for sharing your suggestions about taking care of our mental and physical health, because I feel like this topic is usually overlooked, as if there was no link between our mind and our body.
Yes.
But especially in our profession, which is really stressful and can get us really anxious and nervous, we always suffer. So there is actually a link between our mind and our body. Everything then reflects on our body.
Yes.
So
yes.
thank you very much. I have one last question. What about artificial intelligence? What do you think about it?
I think it was a lot said about this, and I think it will be a lot of discussion about this. But my opinion, it has a lot of positive aspects, but there are some negative aspects we should consider. Especially in the last time, I hear a lot about AI hallucinations. This is where AI gives information which is not right, it is not correct, it is even misleading information. And this is dangerous because a lot of people, because of AI, think they don't need their own knowledge. Especially younger generations, they say we have AI, we don't have to learn, we can find here knowledge of everything. But to check the AI, if they give you a correct answer, if it gives you correct answer, you need to have your own knowledge. Otherwise, you cannot check it. Otherwise, you will believe everything that is produced by AI, which is not very good. But in our profession, AI has also the other side. I was interpreting at one event, and I had to sign the NDA, so non-disclosure agreement. And we had a discussion, and in the middle of this meeting, the client stands up because he needed translation into a complete different language. And he put his confidential text into online translation tool and was very happy because he got the answer in few minutes. So the translation was finished in few minutes. And I just told him, you know what you did, because I had to sign the NDA, and you gave your confidential text, which is now public in internet. So they were very surprised by this because a lot of clients don't know this. And I think our job in this profession is also to make aware, to explain to the client what it means to use AI or these online translation tools, because a lot of them are just not aware what this means if they use this translation tool. And you cannot be responsible for something that is put outside in the public. So this was my explanation to the client about AI.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is another this is the other side of the coin of AI. So we
Yes.
usually don't consider it, and I think this is going to be food for thought for anyone who is listening, both professionals like us and agencies and clients probably. So do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, I have. So we spoke about taking care of education and practicing and preparation and clients and health. When I finished my work, I saw we didn't speak taking care of your wealth. We should speak about this next time. So we spoke about everything, and I think it's just this is the basics what it means for me taking care of your words. When I say to my client, I will take care of your words, this is behind this taking care, because there are a lot of steps included in this, and there are a lot of steps included in the price which I give to my client, and my client is willing to pay because they know what everything is here in this package. And so the final thoughts would be, I would like to thank you for putting this event together, Johnny and Michael. It was, I'm very happy and excited to be here and to present here. And so happy to work with Francesca and Patrice and Marie later. So thank you again for giving me the chance to speak today. And I hope I could help somebody with my stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you did. You did a great job. Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts. I think it was really, really inspiring. Thank you very much. And I will give the floor to Johnny again. I think we're going to see him in a bit.
Yes.
Here he is.
Fantastic job. I was about to just pull up and relax because you did such a great job, Francesca and Carmen. So it was great just listening. I'm sure everybody who's connected enjoyed it just as much as I did. And we have, actually crushed our registered attendees. We passed 300, which is just fantastic. I just want to thank you for your participation. We'll have you back on. We'll have a little Q&A roundtable at the end. So you'll all be seeing Francesca back. I will now introduce our next speaker and guest. She is, just for a footnote and a disclaimer, just in case, she is weathering literally the storm, Hurricane Ernesto. And so if we have any technical issues, we understand completely, but not even a hurricane can hold back Marie Benzo from the Dominican Republic with the Voice and Ink Boutique. If you haven't already listened to our conversation on my podcast, Tuning with Intersys, please go to YouTube, follow, listen, enjoy on any of your favorite platforms. But without any further ado, and hopefully without any interruption from Hurricane Ernesto, I welcome you, Marie, to our #MoreThanBilingual live event. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, Johnny. It's a pleasure to see you again.
It's always a pleasure. Yeah, so for all of those that have not yet had the pleasure of listening to our conversation, maybe just seeing you and listening to you for the first time, I'll give a little bit of background. Like I said, the Voice and Ink Boutique. Marie Benzo is an interpreter, conference broadcast and business interpreter, translator, English, Spanish, French, English to Spanish. And I know you're working on your Brazilian Portuguese as well, which is a working language as well for you. Top technical translation voice on LinkedIn. And I've already mentioned, but again, you're on the island of the Dominican Republic, and it is sort of peak. I think peak is September, October, but we're in hurricane season. So we're hoping for the next 35 minutes or so, we have you on. So without any further ado, we want to welcome you on this platform because you and I have talked in private and as well on our podcast. What we really themed your presentation as a look behind the curtain, because there's always, for many people, a misconception of what translation is, what it isn't, and what am I really paying for, and why does it cost so much, and all of these things that for those that are unfamiliar seem to be common questions, and you're going to touch on a lot of that. This is unscripted, everybody. We're here really just talking as colleagues and friends. So hopefully you all enjoy this conversation. I am just going to segue to you and give you your space now, Marie. With that in mind, give us a look then behind the curtain, and why is that so appropriate of a topic in our space and industry, and why is it necessary to maybe give everybody a peek.
Thank you, Johnny. It's great intro. Well, first of all, translation and interpreting are two different things. They are key components of the same industry, which is the language services industry. But there seems to be a misconception where people tend to call interpreters translators, and they couldn't be more further from the truth. We've already explained it on our podcast, as well as my colleagues that went on earlier today. Translation is the art and a science at the same time. It's where you convey words from a source language to a target language. Translation can help conclude negotiations. It can put everything in the clear when drafting a contract. What are the working conditions? It could even help save lives when you're describing a medical process. Whereas interpreting is, I don't want to use the term live translation, but in a way it is, because you are conveying a message from one source language to the other, and you're doing it with barely maybe a 2-second relay between the speaker and the audience. And it could be even more of a mentally taxing effort, because you need to be able to convey the emotions. I've always advocated for the fact that interpreters need to allow some emotion to be conveyed in their message, but but at the same time prevent themselves from being overtaken by the emotion. If the speaker is sounding funny, you have to try and make sure that you have the context to make whatever jest he is broadcasting to his audience to also sound funny. I've had to do that on a number of occasions, where I've even resorted to using plain old Dominican Spanish, which tends to be very colloquial and lively and interactive and colorful. But also, you need to be sure that whatever the emotion, you need to try and give yourself a limit. There's a threshold of just how much you can convey without allowing yourself to be overwhelmed. Sure, the speaker is making a joke, make sure he sounds funny. If he is sounding angry, make sure that you put enough emphasis on your rendition. If there's a moment where he sounds emotional, he's overwhelmed by telling a very personal story, allow yourself the vulnerability to convey that idea, but don't break down in tears while you're conveying that message to the audience.
Yeah. So then, when we discuss kind of what goes into becoming a subject matter expert like you, one of the things I appreciated from our conversation was I really did feel like, you took me to school a little bit, which I liked, by the way. And that isn't something that happens by osmosis. I know that you take very seriously this craft, this discipline, and you've really have a collection of different references, glossaries, and dictionaries. I'll let you share how many of those there are, but I think it'd be worth sharing with the viewing audience and those that are here to really appreciate, like any good frontline worker, medical professional, you want them to be on top of what are the latest advancements, up to date, current. How does a translator do that? How do you do that?
Well, first of all, answering your question, there are 66 specialized dictionaries and bilingual glossaries in my reference center. The reason why I do this is, call me old school. Even though we are in the midst of digital transformation, the digital era, not everything is still available online. And when you translate or cater to international organizations, they tend to launch their own versions of their terminology in print. And this is terminology that has been standardized all throughout the many different agencies that make up these, international clusters. Let's just say the United Nations, that is composed of so many agencies. There's UNICEF, there's the World Trade Organization, there's the UNDP, and all of them have specific terminology that, because it's been standardized, that it will be used perpetually. So why not play it safe? Sure, you can rely on lingui.com, you can go to the pros.com terminology database, you can search a term, but there will be no greater feeling of safety as having a print source available to consult anytime you need. What goes on? I really like to put this in, in more, in layman's terms, but our profession is a jack of all trades. Simply put, why is it a jack of all trades? Because you have to be multitasking. You have to be able to do the research. You have to be able to. You have to have a contingency plan in case the client is not available to provide you with greater feedback when preparing for an assignment. You can consult the internet. You have to read books. You have to watch news. So I think we conversed this during our podcast interview. Interpreters need to be open to study with like doctors. Doctors don't just live off their degree from the moment they graduated. If you don't innovate, if you don't continue to further your education, you could be missing out and at the same time compromising yourself. So I think that principle applies to us as interpreters and linguists as well. I tend to be one that I watch the news, I watch the media. I've actually gathered a very nasty habit in recent years of reading subtitles, and I crack up, and this is a very personal story. I've cracked up at times when I'm listening to the dialogue and the subtitle does not match with what the speaker is conveying. This happened to me a few years ago. I was watching an episode of the famous series The Borgias, which you all know was the unholy family of the history in Italy. And I had gotten a copy of one of the episodes. So basically, they were mentioning the papal bull, which was a sacred decree, and the person responsible for subtitling translated into Spanish as El Toro Papal, as in literally the papal bull, and it was historic. It was hysterical. I cracked up, and I've tend to observe that kind of mistake as well when watching a few Netflix programs where the subtitle does not match the original dialogue. So these are the little nits and bits that you pick up along the way. And it may be a very good example of what I'm trying to portray. We have to have the discipline of doctors, the openness to study, to continue learning, because this is a profession that if you're not open to constantly studying, to educating yourself, regardless of the source or content that you are resorting to in order to prepare, then maybe this is not for you. We need to have also the discipline of military men. There's a schedule, there are timelines, there are deadlines, and if we cannot commit, we are not only, well, you said it, no one said it better than you. You only have one first chance to make a first good impression, or a good first impression. And we also need to we have to have the empathy of stage actors. It's going back to what I said earlier in my opening. Interpreters need to be able to portray and convey that emotion, that feeling. We're not robots, and we're not AI. We are still humanistic, and I still believe that human interpreters will still have maybe another good 25 to 30 years before AI could potentially replace us, which I completely doubt it will. So we have to be able to convey that emotion. We have to convey that feeling. Remember, we become the voice that connects the audience to the speaker. So it's a process that there are many steps along the way. And to be able to follow them in a specific order, there is no specific order, because at the end, the order of whatever factors does not alter the end product. But there are certain steps that need to be considered. So there's discipline, there's empathy, there's openness to study. You have to give yourself the opportunity to also be vulnerable when interpreting.
Thank you for that. And so then, as we kind of discuss the nuance of translation and the value proposition, again, as you mentioned, it was discussed in Patrice's presentation. It was also echoed in Francesca's. I'd like you to kind of share with us, maybe high level, doesn't have to be, or it can be as specific as you want. What you do when you accept a translation project, and what tools do you use to be able to then successfully get the job done, accurate and at the quality
Well,
that
first of
you
all,
provide.
I make sure I never accept a project in a field of specialization that I'm not familiarized with. That's basically dark territory for me. I have mastery of a very specific fields. There's tourism, there's medicine, there's banking and finance, there's gastronomy and leisure, there's luxury brands. So I have to be honest, never accept a job that you are not well prepared for because it could cost you the client and your reputation. Since I am actually I'm a passionate nerd. I like to read, I like to inquire. I'm very curious natured. If you're assigning me a project, let's just say a tour guide. Okay, it could be a tour guide. It could be say, what is a tour guide going to be? So there are many streams of what that compose the field of tourism today. So there's ecotourism, there's adventure tourism. Okay, so let me start checking what have been the most recent publications in the field. Okay, what are the main areas? So there's a series of key points that basically it's all about. It narrows down to doing your homework. I do my homework. I start checking out. Let's see, CNN has very good tourism segments. They have these little shorts. There's also literature. As an islander myself, I know what it's like to promote tourism as part of, as a pillar of your national economy. So to me, tourism comes easy, so to say, because it's something that's part of my everyday life. I make sure to always find out what are our signature activities or dishes. So I try and have that entire foundation stone, and I make sure that I have enough resources to rely on to help nourish that foundation stone and build from the ground up. I know it sounds a little bit more metaphorical, but once again, I can't stress this enough. Never accept a job that you are not skilled for. Here in my country, and I'm sure that this is a proverb that basically can apply to anyone in the world. One good referral, and in the world of freelancing, most people get to you through word of mouth. Not all of us advertise, so word of mouth. So a good referral opens 1 to 3 potential doors. A bad referral can close 10, and you never even noticed.
Thank you. No, I agree. I'm actually piggyback off that point there, where the bigger picture, right, that I think is really important for everyone in our community, LSP, including, obviously interpretation, translation, and everything in between. Sometimes we all have been there where we need to make ends meet. You know that the price, is really not where it should be, and maybe, this isn't my expertise, but I really need the work. And I think in the short term, someone can justify that, right? But then in the big picture, it really is hurting yourself because of what you said. Because when you are diluting the product, then it really ends up hurting the industry. And by extension, it ends up hurting you, because then you will never get the quality of work that you deserve and that you are qualified for and that will suit your strengths. So it's sort of like this balancing act of stepping back and seeing kind of down the road of, maybe it's a timing issue. Sometimes it's just waiting, it's being patient. I think, one of the things I've always mentioned, for those, like I said, this is also about entrepreneurship at its core. There's a level of pain that goes into being an independent contractor, freelance interpreter, translator, entrepreneur, where if you don't have that tolerance, you make bad decisions. And bad decisions lead to someone not really being here this time next year. And not to be dramatic, but that's just the truth of it. So I think, how would you maybe provide some tips and suggestions of when those times are difficult, because it's a part of the ebbs and flow of what we do? How would you recommend that person work through that so they don't make a bad decision, and that maybe they can find ways to kind of tread water until the right opportunity comes their way?
Oh, like yeah. Okay, let me present the following analogy. No diving when you're going into the pool. And if you dive, swim at your own peril because there is no lifeguard on duty. Okay. So I would say my advice to aspiring professionals, aspiring linguists, just starting new kids on the block, seasoned professionals, it applies to everyone. If you're not sure, don't accept it. A better opportunity can always come. I know that it sounds easier said than done. We all need to make ends meet. We have to eat, we have to pay our bills, everything. Yes, but let me just ask yourself, if you were in the process of scheduling a surgery, who would you go to? Would you go to the doctor that graduated 35 years ago from medical school and never again considered joining a conference, never learned about the latest technologies, never sat down to network with colleagues in their areas of expertise? Or would you go to the doctor that continues to study, that has learned the latest technological advances to that medical procedure? Who would you put your life? Whose hands would you put your life in? That's the question that you need to ask yourselves at the end of the day. Who are you going to go to? Are you going to go to the amateur, to the relative that is bilingual, to the nephew that is starting out in medical school? Or are you going to go to the professional that you know invests endless hours in their preparation, sometimes at the expense, like Francesca said, of sacrificing quality time with their loved ones, their personal life, whatever it be? Who are you going to rely on? The amateur, or are you going to go to the seasoned professional? I don't know you, but I would go to the seasoned professional, because I know that even though at a first glance it looks like that it's expensive, it's an investment at the end of the day.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, you have to believe in it. It's easy, like you said, it's easier said than done, but it needs to be done that way. And I think, the challenge, and you follow content just like I do, and we have a huge community, right? And shout out, I'll just say right now, to a lot of those that have supported not just this event, but really support language services, the quality of work and best standards, right? Shout out to hashtag Hot Sauce interpreters, Trans Premium. I'm all about supporting other professionals that really care about what they do. And I think with that, though, comes the level of responsibility, right? The responsibility being that we have to support one another by making sure we hold to the standard, right? And one of those examples, and this will kind of be my segue to what you and I talked about, is really taking time to master our craft. You said it really well with having someone who is again professional, very qualified and prepared in any space, medical especially. What is it that you've done, for example, and share with those watching, because you have a remarkable library of references. How have you compiled that, and what does that look like today when we talk about building your repertoire and your kind of knowledge base and keeping track of that? What does that look like for Marie Benzo?
Well, from speaking from a very personal perspective, for example, as you know, as we discussed on our podcast interview, I grew up working in different industries of our national economy. I worked in mining, I worked in cocoa exports. So agriculture, mining, geology, metals, all of that comes into play because they're key components of each of the industries I worked in. So it was only natural to me that should any translation assignment or even an interpreting event come to play, I should have those resources to recur to. Like I said, it's I'm speaking from a very personal perspective. What necessarily works for me doesn't necessarily have to work for you. But this is an industry where we all should build each other up, especially coming from an island-based market, which is not friendly, which doesn't mainly focus on quality but mostly on price. And I tend to lose bids to undercutters or cheaper prices provided by other vendors. So, and I make it a point, you know what, this was not a gig that was not for me. This job was not for me. I tend to never look back when I say I've invested in my preparation, and I know that perhaps maybe what began as a hobby or sating my curiosity to a point. Or look at this. I could be at Borders Books. I could be at Barnes and Noble. I could be at what was the other one? So there's a series of libraries and bookstores that I would go to during my travels, and I would always go to the reference source. I don't know, call me curious, whatever you want to do. Like, this one looks interesting, I'm just going to take it with me. Oh, this one looks interesting, I'm just going to take that with me. And slowly, gradually, I started building my reference library. It's perhaps one of the best investments I've ever made throughout my career. And I know that any type of service, be it an interpreting event, a conference, a translation project, sure, I have the digital resources available, but then again, there could be blackouts or the internet could be failing. I won't have them. So it's good to know that I still have resources in print available for immediate consultation because they're mine. So, and I'm sorry to sound like a broken record, Johnny. I mean, once again, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for my colleague, but it's the way of life. This is a craft where we have all collected and built ourselves by accessing through different resources and means. And it's a very bespoke experience. Patrice mentioned that he himself had developed a series of sources and references that had not existed prior, so that makes him a pioneer. I perhaps may not have yet innovated to such an extent, but I know that if I have the need to consult a credible source that may not be online, because nowadays with digital news, digital resources, filtered content, you don't really know just how voracious is the resource or source of information that you're accessing. But in the meantime, in my library, I know that everything that I have is credible.
Thank you. I just want to share here. We have a lot of chat coming in and keep them coming. Rode Thomas, professional English Spanish interpreter, CHI Spanish, simultaneous consecutive interpretation services. She wrote to you. Your contribution is invaluable, dear Benzo. Thank you for being straightforward about this crucial aspect of our profession. So just wanted to read some of the chat, a lot of that coming through. We'll certainly try to get to much more as we have our roundtable discussion coming up. So then, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because you didn't mention specifically, but I know, and I'll say this, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm really impressed by it. You have like some 60, was it 60? Was the number of glossaries or something?
66.
Yeah.
66.
So 66 glossaries. And I really am impressed by that, because I think when we talk about investing in ourselves, investing in what we do, it really is not an immediate return on investment. It's really something we're doing for the long term, right? And I think that goes into some of the examples that Francesca mentioned about whether it's a lawyer, whether it's a plumber, whether it's a contractor. They may come out and spend 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and they're not prorating their fee. You're paying for whatever their minimum is. And a lot of times it's a couple hours, whatever that is. It's a large amount for most people. Yeah. And then you question, but it only took you like 5, 10 minutes. And here's what I really like to apply in our space is that just like the plumber attorney on their retainer and the contractor isn't going to discount or prorate because you're not paying them for their time. You're not. You're paying them for what they know. And that's really, in turn, in a very simple layman's terms, you're paying them for the time they save you, right? You didn't go through the years of either education, experience, travel, the highs and lows, buying 66 glossaries, all of these different things. So when they're getting the proposition or proposal from us for services that we render, I think there's a disconnect, right? But it's only going to take you X amount of time. That's really not the point. The point is not how long it takes me. The point is, how long would it take you to do this, right? And then what are the possible consequences of this not being right the first time? what are the legal consequences? What are the monetary consequences of you missing the target for your brand or your product or whatever? And when you analyze it from that lens, it puts things in perspective of, oh, I get it now. So I think we're so accustomed to a lot of things being hourly rate, even per word or per page, and those are measurements that nothing wrong with them. But I think in many cases it overshadows the fact that at the core, when you are looking for someone like yourself that is going to provide a translation, a professional translation, it's really the value of time investment and also the the benefit of really having a message hit its target. And you can either roll the dice on that and see how you can perhaps save and cut corners and nickel and dime, or you can go for a more concrete resolution of someone who has invested many, many years and a lot of experience learning their craft, mastering it, so that you can have the benefit of everything that they've got put into their discipline. So I wanted to share that because I think that was really impressive. The other thing that we had talked about, and I think really is again opening the curtain a little bit, is the fact that when we look at projects that are small or large, doesn't really matter, is the fact that it isn't just as simple as sitting down and, even with all of the references you have and all the glossaries that you've accumulated, it doesn't mean that it's any less complex or requires any less of our foresight or meditation, right? So walk me through a little bit of, maybe tell me an example, names aside, we'll protect the innocent, not so innocent, as I say, but tell me what would go into perhaps a challenging project, and how does that look like for someone who knows nothing about what we do? Give me a day in the life, and what steps do you take so that you can make sure before you hit send and basically give the client the final product? What are some of those main steps that go into a project, if you don't mind?
Let me sum it up by saying that I have had projects from let's just say small micro boutique firms that have been more challenging than working for multinational clients, and this is where it comes to play. Sometimes the bigger you are, the more close-minded you can be as a client, whereas the small client, the new kid on the block, they want to impress, they want to prove their capability, that they too deserve a spot on the market. I've had projects that have been challenging in the sense where sometimes I don't always get the feedback from clients that I need, and I have to do a lot of solo work to prepare. Sure, there's like, oh, here, we want to hire your services. This is what we're going to talk about. How much do you charge? No, I can't charge for a document translation until I know what the word count is. Is when I'm calculating the word count, and I divide it based on the formulas that I learned during my schooling, that I know how many real time pages we're talking about, and that is what will allow me to provide a proper deadline for delivery. When a client calls me to interpret, oh, it's only I need you to, I want to hire your services, but it's only 45 minutes in the booth. It's like 45 minutes. Well, I have a minimum guarantee, but why do you have to charge me so much? Because it's only 45 minutes. Well, simple. It seems like 45 minutes for you, but what happens when there's a delay? What happens if the speaker takes longer than they had scheduled or projected themselves because they're really getting in the zone and there are questions being asked? When you need me at a certain amount of time, that means I basically have to calculate and organize myself to being there at least 45 minutes to an hour. That means that I have to leave my house sometimes even up to 2.5 hours in advance to make sure, because traffic is not always on our side. And anyone that drives in Santo Domingo or cities like New York, Miami, even Cairo in Egypt will tell you that traffic is crazy, and it's one of the total uncertainties that we will never be able to control no matter where we are. And then the client said, "Oh, but E, okay, so now I understand. So why are you're still charging me too much? Okay, so we extended by an hour." Yeah, but in the meantime, the preparation time, the amount of time that I spent dedicating myself to studying, to learning, to mastering the topic, to asking questions, if I needed to communicate with you, if you were not there, the moment I had to resort to other resources or perhaps doing more research in order to prepare well for the service, for my, call it a conference, call it a seminar, call it a training, whatever the type of assignment, it entails a vast amount of preparation in order to do a good rendition. And a good rendition, not just a good rendition, a quality rendition, requires investing more time than sometimes we're willing or open to giving. But as we tackled earlier, it's all about the word of mouth. If you do a bad job, it's going to cost you clients that you never even thought at some point in time would end up approaching you. And I will never stress this enough. You have to prepare, you have to do your research, you have to do your homework, you have to consult the old references, you have to consult the digital references. So it's basically a total melange of the old where the old and new come into place for a common cause.
Thank you for that. So then, share with me now, what is it that you've been in this space? How many years now have you been
Going on
doing?
20.
Yeah, and that's really remarkable. First of all, because not everyone gets to a decade, let alone two of them. In your case, or close to that. So, what is it that you enjoy about what you do? Because I think that's the other point that goes into this theme of hashtag more than bilingual. It's not just that we are, again, bilingual proficients, but we really do, for the most part, and as I think it should be, we have a passion for, we enjoy doing what we love to do, and we get paid for it. Um,
Yeah.
what aspects particularly, I have an idea of what they are, but I'd rather just listen to your response. What aspects of what we do you particularly enjoy that really just drives you to keep working and look forward to the next project?
Well, let me sum it up the following way, Johnny. It's like I don't charge for what I do; I charge for what I know. And that preparation process, I don't know, call it an adrenaline rush, but I know that whenever I'm going into the booth, I'm always looking forward to it. Sure, it's mentally taxing. Sure, I've had days where I exit the conference booth feeling like someone beat me with a baseball bat, and it takes me 2 to 3 days to recover from the mental and the physical effort, because interpreting is both a physical and mental task. It drains the life out of you easily, and sometimes the more complex, the more long lasting an assignment, the more time you need to recover. I think that we spoke about this at our podcast session, where I've had assignments 2 to 3 days where I have to at least take 1 to 2 to 3 days to recover before taking on another service. I love it. And if you ask me to compare what do I enjoy the most between translating or interpreting, I'm always going to say I love interpreting. Hashtag, can you dig it? I dig what I do. I enjoy it. I live it. I love it. I look forward to it because it's a way, interpreting, perhaps more than translation, has opened doors to a world of not only resources. It's an immersive experience where you're learning about a different culture. You're learning about things that you don't learn about in school. And personally speaking, some of the best milestones in my professional trajectory were things that I learned. It was more of a learn as you go. It was hands-on, it was field experience, it's interviewing the farmer in the banana plantation when you're going on missions with sustainable agriculture branding entities, it's learning about a procedure, it's getting the chance to participate in a simulated open heart surgery, or maybe even a craniotomy. So all of those experiences are, I would say, I want to. I'm getting emotional here because it's something that's very dear to me. I would. It's no assignments is no 2 assignments, no 2 days, no 2 events are ever the same. There will always be a takeaway from this event. There will always be a takeaway from another event, and all of those experiences make up for the thrill, the key takeaways. It's what you learn sometimes not in the booth but outside of the booth, be it in a field mission, being escorting. I actually had the opportunity of escorting a top level diplomat a few years ago, and he came from the cradle of life, Africa. During a high level meeting with some government officials, one of them actually used the word asante sana, which was, and I'm taking a little trip down memory lane here. Asante sana was a phrase that Rafiki, the famous baboon, used in the movie The Lion King, which actually means thank you very much in Swahili. And the diplomat said, we don't use Swahili, we don't speak Swahili in my country. Oh boy. that was an memorable experience. So going back, it goes back to doing your homework so that kind of itsy bitsy mistake doesn't happen, because it can bruise an ego, it can hurt you, it can make you at times lose face, even though it was unintentional. So the best piece of advice that I would perhaps convey to our listeners and anyone that approaches me is cover your corners, do your homework, invest in your preparation, watch the news, read books, try and learn about authors that are coming or specialists from that specific field that you're doing your research on. It always helps. It's the backup. It's that backup will always contribute to enriching your know-how. As you never know nowadays. We work in different languages every day. As we globalize, there are new terms that are being basically injected and adopted by the English language, Spanish, whatever the language you are interpreting or translating into. Never just stand by the fact that, oh, I speak English, I don't need to learn. No, that's you couldn't be more further from the truth. And let me go back to reminiscing our podcast session. Remember when I told you that the English language that we speak today is not the English language that used to be spoken before, because English used to be a very rich language that had been basically nurtured by a series of regionalisms. There were that were basically transliterated and became part of the lingo. And remember how I told you that back in ancient Europe, until the parting of ways between the United Kingdom, England back then, and Catholic Europe, all legal and diplomatic affairs were translated into French. And we know that a specific lady came into play and she married a certain sovereign, and she basically ended up causing the partition between Britain and Catholic Europe, therefore the rise of the Church of England. And up until then, English and French went hand in hand. What do we speak today? Sure, there are different streams of the English language, but none of them by far resemble the English that used to be taught back in the day. Why do I say this? I promise I'll get to the point. Go in depth. Do your homework. Focus on your research. Consult old sources. Consult new resources. Try and make it a point to customize your training, your training experience. You never know. And as we continue to globalize, we continue to become more immersed in this digital era, information will just continue to blend to the point where you don't know what ends and what begins.
Thank you for that. Talking about I really enjoy listening to, your personal knowledge of the languages that you speak, and also the work you've put in to really know, like you said, you've done your homework. I want to kind of listen to some experiences. I'm sure you have a lot of them. Could you share with us one of the rewarding experiences you've had? You mentioned, you can see the passion you have and how it's something that you really you feel what you're doing, and that's really special. Can you share with us maybe an experience that you felt was really rewarding? You don't have to, of course, share anything that's confidential, but why you felt that it was rewarding, and what did that look like? One of the assignments that you've done, because I know as a language service professional, a lot of times we get to see and experience things that few people get the opportunity to. And there's certain gifts we are given by being in certain situations. Is there any that stand out to you that you've experienced personally?
Well, I can say that it's perhaps a perk of the trade that when you're interpreting, they're not hiring you to edit. You're not a filter. So sometimes, regardless, sometimes you have to resort to nasty language in order to convey an idea. And a few years ago, there was this. I was participating. I'd been hired for a major trade show, and they brought in one of the most recent Nobel laureates, a renowned economist whose name I will reserve for another time. And when they interviewed him, they said, "Professor, what do you think is necessary to get the Dominican Republic out of its current state of debt?" And he says, "Well, as you know, I only flew in this morning at 10:30, so I didn't have much time to do my homework on the Dominican Republic. But let me start by answering the way I answer every single country that has always asked me that question. You have to regulate the goddamn banks." So in Spanish, goddamn is not necessarily bendito. It's actually maldito. So I just went all natural. Regulen a los malditos bancos. Which all of a sudden felt like everyone just went in shock that I had been so brave to just say it right there out loud, front and center, while being recorded by the press and national media. And a reporter came into the booth and he actually clapped and said, "Así mismo. That's the way to do it. That's exactly what he said." And I ran into a couple of high level executives in our financial sector. They were just cracking up at the sight of his, like, "What is that?" You have balls. You actually told it like it is. Like, I'm not being paid to edit. I'm supposed to convey a message. And if that's what he says, that's what he said. It was probably one of the most rewarding experiences of my career. And I got it from him. I go, "Couldn't you have changed it? Couldn't you have said something different?" No, because that's not what he said. What he said was X. I convey X. He did not say Y.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's very real, very real. You put in situations where, as we learn, add nothing, omit nothing, change nothing, and sometimes it can get very sensitive really quickly. So on the other end, as we still are the final part of your presentation here. What do you want those watching or rewatching it later, because this will replay, what do you want them to walk away from this particular presentation, um, kind of as a call to action? What changes would you like to see on both sides? One, in our space of language services, but then what would you like to see on the other end, which is prospective clients that may be watching this, that maybe are decision makers and looking at whether or not they understand the value proposition of hiring a professional translator, interpreter, which is really what we want for everyone watching here to come away with. What do you think each of those parties should kind of be motivated to do from this day forward? Maybe one takeaway for each one in our space, but also those that are looking at it from the other side.
I would like everyone that's currently listening to know their worth. Don't compromise yourself unless you know that the effort is worth it. Never give up quality, because we have a famous saying, you get what you pay for. What's cheap will always end up being twice as costly versus investing in a quality professional to get the job done. And call it ego, call it whatever. Know your worth. And this is a hashtag that I'm actually borrowing from a colleague, Julia, because she teaches seminars on helping all of us freelance professionals know our worth. Know your worth. Never sacrifice quality. I would like to see a market that unites, where best practices are being exerted and applied no matter which corner of the world we are in. We should all advocate for defending our profession. We built it. We worked hard to maintain it. We have excelled and sacrificed much to get as far as we've come so far. We cannot let perhaps features like AI basically blow us out of the water. That to me is unacceptable. I want to see everyone here, present and in the future, advocating for an industry where everything is done with ethics, with transparency, where we are charging what we know. We're not charging for what we do. We are charging for the amount of research, for the endless nights, for the sacrifices that we've made along the way to prepare. This is not an easy profession. I want to see everyone acknowledging that this takes discipline. This takes not just artistry and vulnerability. It takes openness to learning. Interpreters, translators, we have to be willing to continue learning along the way, because this is a career where there's no one size fits all and there's no free for all discount. Those are just marketing principles that don't apply to our industry. I want to see everyone fighting for their professional betterment. I want to see people getting accredited. I want to see aspiring talents becoming certified. I want to find an industry where the undercutters will each day find less and less room to sabotage the market. Call it an utopian society, but I think that it can happen if we all join efforts and work towards that common cause, because it will be for greater good.
Well said. Thank you so much. That is powerful. I think, many cultures share a similar idiom, right? In Spanish, lo barato sale caro. So like you said,
right.
When we think could be a savings on dollars, it could end up being more than we imagined as far as the cost. So I echo that. I think, knowing your worth is so important. Trusting in the process, knowing it takes time. And it's been a pleasure having you here, speaking to that. And really, I think, hopefully, letting everyone take a look behind the curtain, as the theme was for your presentation, of that these are individuals that are not machines, for risking the obvious, stating the obvious, but also the fact that because of that same fact, there are a lot of qualities, a lot of sacrifice that goes into providing quality translation or interpretation that a lot of times is not really recognized, not deliberately, but really because of a lack of education. So hopefully, by those that are either watching us live, I have a few comments here that I want to share with you during your presentation, like I did with earlier guests. We have Brita Norris, bilingual, bicultural, English, German translator, transcreator, proofreader, editor, subtitle creator. Shout out to you. She says, amazing, Marie. So Doris R, which is part of the Trans Premium group, and you're familiar with interpreter, medical, legal, public service, OPI, VRI, RSI, English, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese. That's a lot there. Doris, we appreciate you. And she says, I feel you so much, Marie. Benzo, interpreting is a calling! Exclamation point. So that was her comments during your presentation there. And we'll try to get to a few more for those of you watching, we do have a 15-minute virtual roundtable Q&A, which will begin shortly. Any final comments that you wanted to share? I think, again, we are going to provide, just like everybody else, if you're not connected with Marie, you can find her on LinkedIn very easily through this post. And we're going to obviously have the post of this event by LinkedIn. It'll be shared so you can rewatch it. You can pause it, come back. Anything that you'd like to say as far as final comments or thoughts, Marie?
My closing comment to all of you, just remember, know your worth, do your homework. You're not going to become a success overnight. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes being openness, affording to be vulnerable. Not every client is going to hire you straight away. Some of them will take their time because they need to find that you have, they need to hear some word of mouth. That's a totally normal, it's a standard operating procedure. Do not despair. Train, learn, go online. There is a plethora of free webinars that can help you start building your reputation, your preparation, helping you build your professional CV. There's cross-cultural communications. There are several online programs that can help you develop a whole new set of skills that will serve you that will come in handy when the time is right. Like I said, this is not an overnight phenomenon. Not all of us that have become seasoned professionals, and some of us that are on the road to becoming seasoned professionals, experienced the miracle of magic. It's a profession. Like doctors, you have to study, you have to prepare, you have to be open to learning, you have to be disciplined. So interpreting, the language profession itself, the language industry, there will always leave some room for uncertainty, because sometimes it's on those most unexpected assignments and services where you get to learn the most. So be open to that.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to invite now, you can stay here. We're going to invite the rest of our panel of guests back on and have a little bit of a conversation with some questions that perhaps weren't answered yet, but we have in our chat. I have one here, a lot of comments here. And I was looking at one, let me just make sure I have it here, from Sonia Trave. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Interpreter, French, Spanish, and as well as a translator. Her question was directed to Patrice, but we can, after you answer it, we can open it up to the group as well, since we all have experience with this. The question was, do you think that having a website is absolutely necessary?
Yes, that's a very good question, and thank you for your question. I forgot to answer it previously in writing. I don't think it's absolutely necessary short term, but it does become necessary in the longer term, medium to longer term, because you need to be present on more than one platform. You can use LinkedIn and other platforms to promote your services and create connections with potential clients. But as well, if you have a platform that you actually own and control and cannot be blocked out for whatever reason, sometimes technical, sometimes more subtle, and it's better that way. So at one point, it is best to have in the medium to longer term, it's best to have a website through which to channel your demand, especially as your demand grows, your volume work grows. And there are several specialized platforms that help you handle part of your accounting. You can have that built into your platform as well, your website as well, by your developer. Accounting, invoicing, automated repetitive messages with clients, for example. So yes, in the medium to longer term, I do suggest that you create a website.
Thank you. I will open it up. I'll comment. Interestingly, I think I have shared this in previous interviews that I've done on other platforms. Believe it or not, I did not have a website my first 2 years in business. And I deliberately didn't have one. It wasn't that I couldn't. I was always had an affinity for marketing, and I have Michael. Shout out to Michael Hillenbrand, by the way. He didn't ask for me to shout him out, but I'll shout him out. He's fantastic, and we go back. But I definitely knew I could create a really cool website. I've always had an affinity for graphic arts, and when I drew my logo with one of the Adobe platforms, I sent it to Michael actually and had him take a look at it, because I was like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" He's like, "This looks great. I think you'll use it." So that's the logo that I have to this day. I literally just digitally hand drew it. But my point was, I didn't want a fancy website, just have a fancy website that looked great and then just impress everybody, because I really wanted to see if I could really make this a career and be successful. I was really hard on myself, I think. It's just always been my mindset. And I didn't want to fake it. I know people say fake it before you make it, but I felt like it was more fake than making it. So I didn't want to make a fake website of like, yeah, this is all great. So I didn't do it really till after 2 years. And at that point, I was like, okay, yeah, I have clients and I was doing really well. And I felt legit at that point. And then I made the website. So there's different ways, I guess, is what I'm saying. It's not always what you think you have to do. I think websites are great. No doubt about it. I do a lot of marketing through the J3 Collab project I'm co-founder with. So, it almost seems like a oxymoron or contradiction that I'm saying that, but I'm being truthful, is that it really comes down to knowing what you represent, in my opinion. And I think that was my case. I wanted to know my why. What am I doing? who am I, so to speak? Am I an interpreter? Am I a translator? Am I both? What am I doing? And then once I figured that out, the rest was easy. So that was kind of my story. And what I would suggest people is, it's okay to not have everything figured out. I always say fall forward, but sometimes waiting is okay. And I waited 2 years, and 70 years now, still here. So it is there's different ways to get there. How about everybody else? What did you all do, and what are your thoughts on a website?
Well, personally, I don't have a website. I had a Facebook page, which I discontinued. I advertise a lot, not advertise, but I share my work on social media platforms. You would not believe the power of social media platforms when they are properly used. For example, Facebook, LinkedIn being the professional network par excellence, even Instagram. Most of our public is visual. They need to see activity, and not all of them have the time. We have people nowadays that log on to that follow specific social media channels in order to read the news. X, Instagram, anything, any network. These are not exactly the people in this millennial generation that are going to go and type in a website on the browser in order to explore. No, they want to see more live feed. And believe it or not, the more live feed they see, the more videos that you post, etc., that actually lures them in as potential clients. They reach out and say, "Hi, I want to reach out. I'm interested in your services. Can we schedule a call? Can we schedule a Zoom meeting?" So that has been my experience. And I know for a fact that there are several colleagues of mine that don't even advertise on social media because they've relied mostly and built their trajectory based on word of mouth referrals. So I think it's more of a bespoke process for each of us, depending on where we are and the type of audience that we want to reach out to.
Thank you. Anyone else? Carmen, Francesca, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I think a website from my country, from Slovenia, my business started when I got my website. Before this didn't happen anything, just small orders. But since I got the website, everything started. But this was more than 10 years ago. So today's situation is different. And as Marie said, I think it's very important you are in social media. Although some experts say we should not post selfies because it is making other interpreters jealous. But I think this is branding. This is how will you brand yourself? You are your product. We cannot show any, I don't know, ice cream or car or something. We are our product. So what can you show? It's a selfie.
Yeah, sure. Unless you show some mofongo, but I don't know if anybody knows that, but Marie knows what I'm talking about. Go ahead.
Let me be clear. I'm not saying that I won't have a website at a due moment in time, sure. But like Carmen says, we're branding. So what's the best material to brand? As long as it's always client approved, and this is very important.
Yes.
Share a couple of shots while you're in the interpreting booth. Maybe share a couple of pages from a book that you just translated, maybe the title or maybe a video. Lately, clients, whatever they're investing in published works, they always produce some video content that's available on YouTube. That's public domain. You can reshare that and talk and give a little glimpse of the project that you worked on. Maybe even create a snapshot of your name on the credits. That always works. That's branding, like Carmen says.
Yeah. Thank you.
We have to build each other up. This is an industry that we have to rely on one another. I know that perhaps some colleagues don't share that same point of view. You know, it's a personal thing for everyone. But branding is important. Like we were talking about Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook when properly used, even X. You cannot believe the amount of viewers, the audience that you can amass just by properly using social media. And that has been the case for me. It would always be someone that saw you working, got your contacts, and heard someone say, "Oh, I need a translator. Oh, I've got the person." So word of mouth comes into play and plays a very significant role. And the way that comes into play is the fact that there will always be someone who saw you working, who saw broadcast, who saw video, who saw post, and then all of a sudden they put two and two together and they click. This is a potential contractor I want to have.
I think I agree. And I think what we're saying is if you don't have a website, you should certainly be using social media. If you're not, then I think there's a big disconnect. But LinkedIn, obviously, stating the elephant in the room here, we're using a platform that is all about visibility and access. But if you're not going to do that via a website, you should most definitely be doing it on social media for sure. Francesca, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, say for me, I don't have a website yet, at least. Not because I don't want to have it, but because I think it's, on the one hand, it's a big investment. And on the other hand, if you want to do it alone, it's a lot of work. So you have to make a choice at a certain point. So right now, I am focusing on my presence on the social media, which I think is already a lot, considering that you're also working in the meantime. So right now I'm focusing on this and on my projects, on my presence on social media, my contents. I had started working on a website that would work as a kind of window, not a permanent website, but as a window. And I noticed that it was taking me a lot of time and a lot of work. So I said, probably it's better to stop here and see how my work volume grows, if it grows up. And then I see and I feel like I need a website to get everything under control. Probably I'll take that step and it will become permanent. So right now I'm just seeing how things work out. And I'm focusing also on networking and words of mouth. With, as you said, it plays a crucial role. So probably that could work right now, and later on, if I see that, if I feel that it becomes necessary, probably I will take that step.
Thank you. I have another question. This one comes from Maribel Cuervo, independent language consultant. She does some simultaneous interpreting as well, English, Spanish. And her question, and as I'm just kind of refreshing here, it says, when working with people from other countries, where do we find market price and how to calculate our rate? So this is again from, she's located in Las Vegas, Nevada, I believe. So she's in the US. And her question again is, when working with people from other countries, where do we find market price and how to calculate our rate? And open up to anybody who has a comment. Go ahead.
My advice would be, hi Maribel, my advice would be try and go on to some of the professional associations, AIC, ATA, depending on your language combo. You know that there will be language pairs that have a slightly higher price, higher rates than languages that are more commonly used, like the English-Spanish combination, French-Spanish, etc. I would say conduct your own survey and try and establish a rate that you feel comfortable, that you believe will cover basically what you understand is your price for a half day, a full day shift. There's never really a standard, but we're not Europe, United States. I think that in the particular case of the U.S., the prices differ depending on your specific location. So geography plays a role in that. Make it a point to consult the high rollers in the sector. Maybe try and do some research on the language industry intel sources like Slater, that always provides very useful insight. And once again, it's a personalized experience. Charge what you believe is fair to the effort and time that you invest. Don't sell yourself short, but don't come out in the cheap either, because you'd not only be hurting yourself, you'd also be hurting the industry and whatever professional name you want to establish.
Thank you. A lot of good tips there. Anyone else want to?
Yeah, I think it links with the topic I was talking about earlier. That is to say, rules and taxes and prices are different from one country to another. So that's very difficult. But I think that the first thing you should do when you set a price is that you first need to cover your needs and your expenses and your taxes. Then if that price is okay for your client, that's perfect. If you need to negotiate, you will find a way to find a compromise. If that's too difficult, you may try to ask for help to category associations, as Mary was saying. For example, I'm a member of Haiti, so if you are a member of those associations, you probably will find help for your colleagues in Haiti. For example, we have a sort of public blog where whoever can post questions, can ask for help, or also publish assignments, announcements, and anyone can reply. And I think that's very helpful.
Thank you.
Good source of information is also your network. If you have colleagues in other countries, just ask them, because most of them are very supportive, and they will tell you openly what are the prices on their market.
Fantastic. Thank you, Carmen. Francesca. Patrice, did you want to comment on that a little bit, or?
Yeah, maybe adding a little something is that what I agree with what the other three said, but this pertains to rates that we charge direct clients, not necessarily agencies, because I find with experience, even with favorable exchange rates, I'm in Canada and the euro and the British pound are higher, of course. I cannot get from agencies I can, but it's difficult to get a rate that resembles the one that I get here in Canada from direct clients. So that has to be taken into consideration as well, because they're going to approach you and say, well, we'd love to have you in our team, but this is what we can afford. And since they're an agency and they already have like an army of freelancers, if you don't fit, they'll find somebody else. But if it's a direct client, everything that Francesca, Marie, and Carmen said applies, obviously.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And as we have a minute here to go, I want to say we have people still on, and I really appreciate everybody staying on with us. It speaks a lot to our community and the speakers that we have here. It's been so much fun. I'll just give my 2 cents on pricing, and I'll probably put this on a post as well. But it'll be recorded here, so copyright. I'm just joking, not joking. But here's, I would say it's not so much the time you invest, but again, the time you'd be saving this particular client. I don't think, and country of origin is important to a degree for the localization and all that kind of stuff. I don't know about so much, in my opinion, about the pricing, because it goes into what Francesca said. We have to have our costs covered regardless, and so we have to start from that point. And sometimes that might be outside the boundary of some particular locations, and that it is what it is. Number 2, your expertise, accuracy, and quality assurance, which all of these individuals here that you've gotten to listen to and learn from have in abundance. And then number 3, don't shortchange yourself. Right? Goes back to knowing your value, but don't shortchange yourself. Pricing, and this is something that I put my little analogy in here. Pricing should be like exercising. It should get your heart racing a bit, and feel slightly uncomfortable. Otherwise, you're not doing it right. So I think, that's my view on pricing. Sometimes we tend to undercut ourselves because we're like, I'm starting to sweat a little bit, heart's racing. That's not a bad thing. You're probably more on the right side. And so we want to kind of conclude with just a gratitude for everybody. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question, we will do so directly or in a post. Stay tuned for our upcoming events, and it's been a ball. So thank you all for joining us. This will be posted on LinkedIn. Thank you, Michael Hillenbrand. Thank you to the panel of guests and speakers. Thank you to our community. And again, if you're looking for a way to start coaching, you don't know quite exactly how to present yourself, branding, DM me. I'm more than happy to help and provide support. Until next time, I'm Johnny Romero with Tuned In with Intersys. And on behalf of Patrice Dussault, Carmen Križanič, Francesca Conti, and Marie Benzo, thank you and have a great rest of your weekend, and see you next time.